Well, you know, I love this music, so I tend to keep it cranked, but I do want to make sure that you're able to hear all of our answers, so I will bring the music down ever so slightly. And hopefully that is sounding a little bit better. I also want to make sure that our guest audio is nice and loud so that you can hear them. Let's see if that works. And hopefully that's sounding a little better. Let me know if it's now too quiet. And I haven't heard Aiden yet. And yes, Super Pizza, if you're just joining us right now, Aiden has gone to freshen up a little bit. Totally respectable move before any romantic engagement. So they are in the restroom right now. So it's just us. If there's anything you want to share, any pointers, maybe from Aiden's fans that you want to share with me going into this, that would be great. But otherwise, in just a moment, we're going to have Aiden return and we're going to jump into our questions. I'm really excited. We got a bunch of new questions. If you watched last week's episode, and they're back. Empty bladders are super romantic, says K-Weeb, but I couldn't agree more. There's nothing quite like having an empty bladder to really set the mood. Be as communist as you can manage. Okay, so I'm getting some advice from some of your chat on how best to approach this to get the optimal romantic engagement. So I do, before we jump into the questions, there is one thing that I want to do, and I still don't know if this segment makes sense or works, but I'm going to do it anyway because I think it's fun. And that, of course, is the chemistry check. So there will be, I think, 4 total chemistry checks over the course of the episode. The first one happens before we answer any questions, and this is where I just like to poll the audience on how's our chemistry. And it's on a scale of 1 to 5. 5 being perfect chemistry, already in love, nothing to fix. Let's go have a shotgun wedding in Vegas. 1 being we should probably never speak to each other. Being in the same room might elicit some sort of, puking or otherwise guttural reaction. So just go ahead and vote right now. We'll do these after each round of 6 questions. Aiden, where would you vote right now?
I would probably agree with where we're at so far, probably about a 3.
Yeah, 3. Yeah, that feels, the first one, I think, non-committal. 3 is a safe answer. This is based off of first looks. We haven't answered any questions yet, so I think 3 is a very safe answer. We got a 1 from somebody. It looks like CJ Oracle. Doesn't have a lot of faith in the chemistry here, but hey, we haven't answered any questions yet, so there's time to improve on that. No 4s or 5s, so we're going to be working at an uphill battle here, it seems. I'm going to go ahead and close out this poll now. It seems though like the majority of you are going with the safe answer, number 3 here, the non-committal, lukewarm response, which is to be expected for our first chemistry check. I'm going to go ahead and close out that poll. And I'm going to come back to the love seat. And so that's the chemistry check. I'm still trying to figure out what exactly that segment is, other than just a poll of the audience. Maybe it will affect some other aspect of the show at some point, but right now it's just kind of a thermometer for how the vibe is feeling. But Aiden,
I think it's fun because I like being judged.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad. Well, that's kind of what this show is all about. Because not only am I falling in love with my guests, but so is the chat. And so chat, please share your opinions throughout the show. If you have clarifying questions that you want to ask, I try to pay most attention to the guest in front of me, but I also will try to keep an eye on the chat. And Aiden, I don't know, do you have the chat open on your side as well?
I do have it open, and I am reading everything. I'm trying not to interrupt you, but I do want to say that in addition to me and Jake falling in love with each other, we're also falling in love with you guys. And so we would love to hear your answers to all of these questions as well.
Absolutely, yes. This is a throuple of sorts. You are the unicorn in this relationship, and so please Do answer the questions, ask questions. We love to hear your feedback, and we may end up discussing some of your answers to the questions as part of our own romantic journey throughout this episode. Jake, what if we love Aidan more than you? Will you get jealous? And yes, I will. And on that note, I do think we should jump into the questions because it's now almost 7:30 and we have not asked a single question. So we're going to jump in to our first question of the evening, which is, what is a piece of media from your childhood that has had a lasting impact on you?
Me?
Yes, and that question is directed to you. And actually, yeah, no, but that, to be fair, I did not explain that, and that is something that was sort of confusing in the last episode. So I think what we'll do is we'll switch off asking each other first. We're both gonna answer every question, but I will ask you the odd questions, so you will answer first on the odd questions, the first one being 1. And then you will ask me even questions, so I will answer first on even questions.
Okay. So, a piece of media that had a really big impact on me in childhood.
Yes, a song, a movie, a TV show.
I really hate what my first answer was. Okay, let me think of a different answer, because the real, actual, authentic answer is, like, the Harry Potter books, which is a cringy millennial answer, but also something that has been tainted for me forever, which is really unfortunate.
Tainted because of the reputation it has as being like the default thing that every millennial loves, or because it had some
I don't have any
traumatic
issues with
experience?
that, because like I can own that, you know, like it doesn't really bother me if something has like a mass appeal. Things tend to become popular for reasons because they're high quality works.
Sure.
My main issue now is that I'm somebody who is gender nonconforming and has a lot of friends who are transgender. My best friends in the world are trans, and so the fact that J.K. Rowling has gone in the direction she has gone,
Yes, that makes sense.
It's just, but I mean, like when I was a kid, like I read all of those books like 5 times. I think that they were complex enough in terms of their narrative that I could reread them a lot and always find new things within them that could stand out to me, but they were familiar and comforting enough that they also like gave me a layer of security growing up. So again, I hate that answer, and I hate that like media is so. I would love to be somebody who can separate media from its creator. And I did for a long time with the Harry Potter books. Like I was able to sort of separate Rowling out from the rest of it, but it's just become so the association's so deep now that I don't think that I can ever have that same level of comfort.
Yeah, that is really hard. I feel like that's something that all of us are sort of, especially recently, reconciling with this idea that all of our faves are canceled. Everybody who made anything that we like seems to be coming out as a bad person. I'm trying to think of what my answer to this would be, and whether or not the creator has ruined it in some way. I do want to just, what is it? Is there a specific thing from the Harry Potter series that you have taken into your adulthood that has shaped you in some way, do you think? Or is it just sort of a general thing that was very important to you as a child that you remember being, profound then and not so much now?
For me, it was the characters, also Locathor, K.A. Applegate, and the Animorph series also was a big thing. That's a much better answer. So like for me, like with the Harry Potter books, it was the characters of Hermione and Luna Lovegood who were so like had such strong personalities and such a commitment to their beliefs, while also sort of existing outside of the norm of what's considered appropriate to be interested in or appropriate behavior. But in a way that was different but still valuable, and I feel like I really latched onto that as a kid, and definitely took it into adulthood. I was very isolated as a kid. I didn't have like any. I had some friends, but very, very, very few. I spent most of my time alone reading or just sort of shutting myself off from the world for various reasons I don't want to get into. So like I just didn't develop very good social skills until sort of recently, and seeing people who were just eccentric in a way, but still valued, was helpful for me.
That makes sense. I think that's a great answer. I think, yeah, I mean, I can totally understand that. And I mean, I can't relate specifically to the characters that you chose, but I read or I can relate to them. I shouldn't say I can't relate. Obviously I can relate to Hermione and Luna, but I think boys tend to relate to the male characters in that, and I always felt like a Ron personally when I was reading this.
I was actually gonna say that you give me incredible Ron Weasley vibes.
Thank you. I take that as a compliment. I think he's a sweetie, and I always identified with his sort of fear of everything, which Harry Potter didn't seem to have. To me, Ron always felt like a much more human and sympathetic character in that way, and vulnerable character in that way. I'm going to bring the music down ever so slightly, just because I'm kind of having a hard time hearing you in my little headphone here. So pardon the interruption. Oh, who's that?
This is Tonsils.
Tonsils?
Hey, Tonsils.
Welcome. I didn't know that you were going to be a part of the show. Do you have a piece of media from your childhood that you were impacted by?
You know, we actually just got Tonsils. He's 12 years old. He's adopted. He has IBS, so we don't know a lot about him and his past. So I'd really be interested in hearing your answer. Hey, Tonsils. Hey, Tonsils. Oh, Tonsils, what sort of piece of media was really influential to you from your childhood? Oh, really? Tonsils was also really into Animorphs.
Oh, okay, that checks out. Yeah, that would make sense. I actually never read an Animorph book, but I would always look at their covers. Really quality artwork on the covers of the Animorph series.
Yeah, for sure. I would recommend it. They hold up.
Okay, well, I guess there's never, a time that's too late to pick up the Animorph series. I will say that a piece of media from my childhood that was very impactful would probably be, I should have thought about my answers to these questions as I was preparing the show, but I really didn't. I would say one of them was the movie The Sandlot. I watched that movie a lot as a kid. I really identified with the main character, who is just kind of like this lonely, sad boy who doesn't have a lot of friends, but then meets Benny the Jet Rodriguez, who is sort of like a cool older brother type character and sort of ingratiates him into a group of friends. And I was like, growing up, I was much more of a, not like a group of friends kind of person. Like I would have like a best friend or someone who I would hang out with, but not necessarily someone who hung out in groups a lot. And so I think there was definitely a vicarious nature to my love of this Sandlot movie, where it was like the idea of like the lonely boy who gets, even though he is terrible at baseball, gets brought into the baseball team and becomes part of, they go on an adventure and like he ends up having like this big group of friends. I don't know, I think
when you think about it, like,
go ahead.
Sorry. Oh, I just think that it's like really cute that like now you're on the Everything Now show and you've got your like group of friends.
Yes, absolutely. It is. I've come full circle. I've found my Sandlot crew. I've found my Great Hambino and my Specs and the rest of the nicknames.
Who would you say, like, with Sydney, Alex, Chris, Rocky, like, who is which Sandlot character?
Oh man, that is really tough, actually. It's especially tough because I really don't remember all of the Sandlot characters, but I do think, I think Benny the Jet is probably Sydney. I would say, or maybe Alex. I would say Rocky is, maybe Specs. Chris is the Great Hambino. I would have to revisit the character list of the Sandlot. I mean, the main, and then there's Timmy and Tommy, who are almost one character, the twins. Or not twins, like the little kid who's got an older brother who he just repeats everything that he says. There's the scary dog. People in the chat are also pointing out there are other characters outside of the main Sandlot crew. Sydney could be Wendy Peppercorn, technically, the hot lifeguard character. There's a lot of characters. I would have to come back to that, but that's an interesting question to ponder on. I do think though that we have to move on, unfortunately, for time. But I think I really like your answer. I think Harry Potter is something that, like you said, seems like an obvious take because it's so pervasive in just like millennial culture. But there's a reason for it, like you said. It's good. It's popular because it's good, and it's easy to like hate on stuff that is popular. But I think it's more interesting to analyze why it is so insanely pervasive. But we are going to move on. There's a dog, yeah, but super scary monster dog, that's true. Alright, we're going on to question 2. Question 2, you will ask me first, and then I will ask you. And that is, have you ever had an interesting or embarrassing nickname?
So have you ever had an interesting or embarrassing nickname?
Yeah, well, when I was at summer camp one year, I think I was probably like 13 years old. I was in a cabin, and it was an overnight camp, and they put us into cabins with our age group. And my cabin happened to have 3 Jakes in it. And so, in an effort to clarify who was being spoken to, I picked, this was the year that I don't know if you saw it, if it was on like Albino Black Sheep, or there was like an animated YouTube video that was like, here's a llama, there's a llama, blah blah blah, blah funny llama, llama, llama. Yes, you know that was extremely popular this summer, and I had us like, in the way that like young kids become obsessed with a random animal. I had picked llamas, and there was a llama at the camp, and so my nickname at that camp for years afterwards, when I would keep coming back after every summer, even though there were no more Jakes in my cabins, was Llama.
Can I call you Llama?
You could. I would.
Or is that like a camp thing? Like it doesn't really work outside of.
I think it is kind of like a camp thing. To be honest, nobody has called me that probably since I left that summer camp when I was like 15 or 16. So I would probably respond to it just because it's something that becomes so ingrained in your psyche after something you're called that for like multiple weeks at a time. But it would be kind of weird. We can call you whatever we want, Jake, says Super Pizza. And that's true. I will probably respond to basically any name that you refer to me, as long as I know that you're talking to me. And if you called me Llama, I would definitely, I'd be confused, but I would know what you're talking about. And Aidan, do you have a nickname from your childhood or at any point really in your life?
No. I've
Never.
had 2 names. I had my birth name or my dead name, and then the name that I picked when I was 18, Aidan, obviously. But like neither of the names I've ever had have ever been really nicknameable. Like, if you wanted to, could you make a good nickname based on the name Aidan?
It is tricky. Like, you want to go to like something like 80, which is kind of like its own, like, you know, like a pet name, or like, I don't know, sometimes like my parents will call me Jay instead of Jake or Jacob, like just shorten it to the first letter, but A doesn't really, I feel like, work quite as well for that. That is tricky.
Yeah, so
Denny.
My answer, I guess, is no.
No nickname.
I do want to say, like, since we're on the topic of names and nicknames, so like the name Jake was actually the name of my childhood bully.
Oh no.
And so like throughout my life, like any other name I'm fine with, but like I've always hated people named Jake. And there were also other asshole Jakes that I met, and so like when I first met you in college, I was like, oh, his name's Jake, he's probably a dick, and so I like was like, I don't know, I was very dismissive, but then I ended up liking you eventually, after like starting to watch the Everything Now show, actually, because Rocky posted about it on Facebook, and then like through the Everything Now show was like, okay, I guess this one Jake isn't an asshole, isn't a massive dick, and then
Well, it's very sweet. I've met a lot of asshole Jakes in my time as well. Jacob, for those of you who don't know, trivia fact, Jacob was the most popular American name for boys from like 96 to like 2006 for like some extremely long time. I think it was eventually dethroned by like Michael or something. But there was a while when there were a lot of Jakes. So it's not uncommon that you will run into all kinds of Jakes. Many of them are assholes. That's just kind of, I think just generally teenage boys can tend to be assholes too. But yeah, not surprising.
But you were still the only Jake that I know and consider a friend.
Wow, that's
so I feel honored by that.
That's very sweet. I knew one Aiden who went to my Hebrew school growing up, and this was a boy, and he was sort of a strange fellow. I guess I didn't have like a really strong opinion one way or the other. Like just kind of like a sort of quiet kid, kept to himself. But I didn't have, when I met you to that point. When I met you, I didn't have any preconceived notions based on your name, really. There are some names that I do like I have a visceral reaction to the name Ethan because I've met a few Ethans that I really did not like. So similarly to your opinion on the name Jake, or like some other Gavin. I've met a couple Gavins that I just like for whatever reason. It's not a good experience. But Aiden, I think
the name Gavin just gives off. I don't know. It does definitely gives off the vibe.
Yeah.
Suki and Kat, I just want to say real quick, I do love you.
Yes, and the love is flowing definitely between guest and host, between guest and chat, between chat and host. Back in middle school, someone gave me the nickname the Walking Talking Dictionary. And it wasn't until many years later that I realized that they were trying to bully me with it. I don't feel like that is an insult. To me, that feels like a compliment. But yeah, I guess when you are young, in middle school especially, dictionaries are not cool. Now in adulthood, dictionaries are cool, in my opinion. My name is Gavin, and Jake and Ethan and Jacob, and it says Super Pizza, and I'm sorry about that. If your name is Gavin or Ethan in the chat, I would love to meet you and sort of quell this prejudice that I have. But unfortunately, we do have to move on to the next question, which I will be asking you, Aiden, and that is, and this question is submitted to us via the Discord by user Squishy Tay, and that is, what is something that you've done to try to seem cool? And this could be something recently, or it could be something, again, from your childhood, but something that you've done to seem cool. Maybe something specifically that is not necessarily your personality, something that you did that you would not have otherwise done if not to seem cool.
It's been a very long time, I think, that I have ever made any attempt to appear cool.
That's good. That is a sign of security.
There's things I do in my head I'll have fantasies where I'm I don't know, slaying some monster or kicking ass, and I can barely do a single push-up, so this is obviously fantasy, but I'll have a lot of fantasies where I'm cool, but I don't really do anything in real life to enact that or appear cool to other people. And I actually look really weird because I have these fantasies where I'm I don't know, fighting people or I don't know, being badass, delivering the cool line at the end of a movie. I'll often be muttering to myself, or people will come up to me and be like, Aiden, why did you just randomly punch the air? Because I don't know. But I really kind of, I think that I've never tried to be cool. I think that I've always just sort of known it was a lost cause.
That's awesome. I envy that.
Yeah, one thing I will say is that I've always wanted to be the bitch with the hookup, you know, oh, if you go to this restaurant, say you know Aiden, and you'll get a free drink, or go into so and so's stream and say you're a new streamer and Aiden Aiden vouches for you and you'll definitely get some followers or something like that, or you want to be on this panel, I'll put in a good word for you with the moderator so you can get in. I've always wanted to be the person who can get people access to things. I've always wanted to be the kind of person who'd be oh yeah, I know a dude who works at a junkyard, let's go, I don't know. So I would say that I do sometimes do that, and sometimes I love to give people resources, I know you're in Portland right now with the fires, and here's a list of organizations I know that will be able to get you an evacuation plan and like a respirator and things like that. Which like obviously like there's like an altruistic thing, but also like the idea of being perceived as somebody who can like cook you up is like, I don't know, that's something that's very appealing to me.
Totally. Well, I mean, to your point, you were the one who reached out and helped us, the Everything Now show, when we were new to Twitch, like, and had literally no idea what we were doing. Like, you helped us get on Discord, you helped us, like, figure out how to set up our channel, like, and to your point also, we all now reference you as the person to hook it up if you're new to Twitch. So it works. Whatever you're doing, it's working. You are the bitch with the hookup, so to speak.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That actually makes me feel better. And anybody in chat who wants to start streaming, send me a message. I will take some time to show you the ropes.
Yes, please. Aidan is a guru and was extremely helpful.
I wouldn't go that far.
They are the master. There's nobody else on Twitch who can help you quite like Aidan. So please do yourself a favor and hit them up. For me, I straightened my hair one time. And I went on a cruise when I was 15, and there was, I was at like a teen club thing that was like for like basically just like daycare for teenagers on the boat, and I met this girl who was like, "Can I straighten your hair?" And I was like, "Yes, definitely." So we straightened my hair, and it looked very much like just, it's a classic like Bieber swoosh look. And so I was like, this is cool. I'm gonna do this when I go home to school. So I went to school. This was probably 8th grade, I want to say, and I like woke up early. I woke up like an hour earlier than I normally would, and had like a flat iron straightener. And if you can't see on the camera, my hair is very much not straight. So it took a long time and a lot of burns, but I did flat iron my hair and went to school thinking that this was going to be the cool new me, and it did not get the reaction that I thought it would. Everyone was just kind of like, "Whoa, what did you do to your hair? That's crazy." It was more of a reaction of surprise and confusion than like immediate sexual desire, which I guess is what I was going for. So I stopped doing that, one, because it didn't get the reaction that I wanted, and secondly, because it takes a really long time to straighten your hair. And I just did not want, this was also the time in my life that I was wanting to sleep basically all the time. So sacrificing those valuable early hours in the morning to futilely straighten my hair was not something that I was going to keep doing. We have some comments also coming in the chat with some comments about their hair. I'm too old to start streaming, says Taxman. Taxman, it's never too late. Hit up Aidan.
Some of my favorite streamers are in their 50s or 60s. They do a lot of like philosophy and ethics streams. I know college professors who stream and will like do their own little office hours for Twitch communities to ask like chemistry questions and stuff. Like there's so much variety and diversity on Twitch, so don't hold yourself back.
Yes, get out there. Do make your dreams come true. Unless your dream is not to start streaming, in which case you don't have to stream. But if you do want to stream, go do it. Talk to Motion Design. Not to out Motion Design as an old person. And I have Jake hair. Oh, awesome. Well, I've used peroxide on my hair. Interesting. Is peroxide a thing that straightens your hair? I don't know. I pretended to have seen the movie Talladega Nights to seem cool with some new friends, says Jay Nels, and that is something I have done like into my adulthood, is like pretending to have seen a thing to just like ease my way through conversation. Have you ever done that, Aidan? Is that something that you do ever?
I really should start, because I always say no, I haven't seen that, because no, I don't really watch movies. I haven't watched a TV show in a very long time, except for this new anime show I found.
What are you
My
watching?
younger brother introduced me to. It's called Fruits Basket, and it's about this like enthusiastic young high school girl who moves in with a group of people who turn out to be like Zodiac. Like they're like the Chinese Zodiac, and like they look like normal humans, but then you hug them and they turn into little animals, and it's very cute.
That does sound extremely cute. No, I think you should not lie about having seen a thing, because inevitably they will ask you a thing about the thing that you said that you have watched, and then you get deeper and deeper into a lie. it's never good. Just say you
Well,
haven't watched the thing
wait.
and that it's on the
What
list.
you could do for a lot of that is like, if you say like, if someone says who's your favorite character, you can always say like, oh, I love that like one weird dude who had that weird cameo in that one scene. And they could be like, oh, I don't remember that, and you can say, oh, it's in the director's cut.
Ooh,
So-
and that makes you look doubly cool. That's sort of a social judo move of lying, and I do actually like that, and I may try that the next time that I get caught in one of those lies. We had one more comment that I wanted to read of somebody who, Asuki, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. I think Aidan knows how to say your username, but they say, oh God, I just remembered a very stupid trying to be cool moment. Again in middle school at summer camp, some girls were talking about waxing their legs, and I lied and said that I'd done it, and it didn't hurt, and then one of them brought wax strips and told me to prove it. So I grit my teeth and was like, see, and then had a weird smooth leg patch for the rest of the week. And
I think that
great.
makes you cool.
That does make you, the fact that you are able to just grit your teeth and bear it actually is very cool.
And the fact that you're able to admit it to us,
Yeah.
strangers on the internet.
All these
That's
years
nice.
later, it must feel good to finally let that out. But I commend you for that. And that does seem to be the way that it goes, is when you do lie about these sort of things, people will inevitably ask you more clarifying questions and try to make you prove it.
Okay, but here's the thing, like, when you say, like, oh, no, I haven't seen that, like, everyone's like, oh, we have to watch it together, and I have to be like, no, because I don't want to watch it with you, or at all. I have other things I like to do with my time, besides watching, like, every, like, Batman movie. Please stop talking to me about it. But they, like, won't let it go. They're like, this is, like, the peak of cinema. Like, you have to watch The Dark Knight Rises. And I'm like, I don't care. I really don't care.
That's true. I mean, you could just go the full brute honesty route and just tell them, like, I don't care and I don't want to watch that, but then you risk potentially hurting their feelings. But you may also end up hurting their feelings by lying to them. So it's kind of a lose-lose. I'm trying to practice more blunt honesty in my life as opposed to trying to appease people by lying to them about saying that I've watched movies, but it's an uphill battle. We are going to move on to the fourth question. This is one that you are going to ask me first, and then I will ask you.
Okay. So, Jake, what is an opinion of yours that has changed?
Thank you for asking, Aiden. An opinion of mine that has changed. Well, I do. Recently, I used to have a very strong opinion about reality TV being really bad. Having never seen reality TV, and I think there still is a lot of reality TV that is really bad. But over the course of the pandemic, I've watched every season after season 10 of the TV show Survivor. And that show is insanely good. It's so good. I became obsessed with that show. I, for the longest time, judged people who were obsessed with like must-see TV in that way, in the way that people, even like shows that weren't reality TV show, like Lost and things that were just on. Like I did have like a, like, why are you so obsessed with TV? Like, there's other things to do. Especially reality TV, though, I dismiss it as being dumb. And a lot of it, I think, still is maybe dumb. But certain reality TV shows can be very compelling, and I think certain aspects of reality TV, if you watch them from like a meta-analysis of like having understanding how TV production works and like not necessarily taking everything that they say at face value, but like understanding what they're talking about and what's happening in the context of like, this is a hyper-produced television show, and these people are aware that everything that they're doing is being televised nationally, and like that aspect of it can be very interesting and compelling, and you can watch it and enjoy it that way without having to necessarily just like it for the drama or whatever. And if you like it for the drama or whatever, that's also fine too. So I think I've come around on like the judgment of those kind of things. Super Pizza's bringing up, I had a girlfriend that really liked Teen Mom and 16 and Pregnant. Most of it was just following young people in abusive relationships. And to that point, I say, yes, there are shows that I think are very, like, I don't know, they
Like
take
exploitative?
Yeah, exploitative. That is the word that I would look for it. where especially things with children. Yeah, things with children and things with mental illness, I feel like are definitely exploitative. But something like Survivor, where it's like healthy adults who are choosing to be on, or like actively pursuing auditioning to be on the show with full understanding of what they're signing up for, that kind of stuff, or like even Big Brother, like that kind of stuff. Those I think are pretty compelling to me. So that's an opinion.
Would you be on Survivor or Big Brother, like if you had the opportunity?
Oh man, I don't know. I haven't watched enough Big Brother really to understand how that game works. Kid Nation, oh my god, K-Weeb, do not get me started on Kid Nation. I have a whole series that I want to do on Kid Nation. That show's insane. Survivor.
I think that I knew. So I think that. Do you know Taylor Pantone from Chapman?
No, but I know of Taylor because I think my friend Peter found out that they were on Kid Nation.
I think that she was almost on Kid Nation, and then there was some thing that happened, and they were like about to go to Kid Nation, and then like I don't know like what happened. Or
well,
maybe
the rumor is that they were gonna make like a second season of that show, and then they the New Mexico police like shut it down because they were like, this is crazy and illegal, and like you can't actually do this. But for those of you who don't know about it, check it out.
Expose of it.
There is a podcast.
I don't watch the actual show, but
yeah, the show is like kind of, well, I don't know. It's just like gripping television because it is sort of exploitative in a way that's like pretty like you can't turn away, like looking at a train crash. But yeah, there is a podcast about it. I haven't listened to the podcast, but check it out if you haven't watched Kid Nation. I don't know if I could recommend it morally, but I guess at this point it's already produced, it's out there. Most of the kids seem to have turned out okay. It's crazy though. It's like Survivor with little kids. To answer your question about whether I could be on Survivor, this is something I've thought a lot about, and I think the like social part of the game I would do pretty well at. Do you watch Survivor? Do you know about how Survivor works? Okay.
I know that there's apparently like little idols or little tokens that play some sort of role.
Yes.
That's about it.
Okay, so I mean, the general gist of it is that there are like 20 people. They get split into two tribes. They live on this island, and they do these challenges. And if you lose the physical challenge, you have to decide to vote one person out of your tribe. And it kind of works like Among Us in that way, where it's like you have to. It's a very socially political game. A lot of social deceit. You have to try to align yourself with other people in your tribe to get the majority, because it's the majority rules. Whoever gets the most votes gets kicked out until there's one person left. So it's all about trying to team up with other people to get the numbers of the majority to then vote somebody who you don't want to be in the game anymore. That aspect of the game I feel like I would do decently well at. The part that's hard is that you are also living on an island and like you don't get food, you don't get like a shelter, like you have to just live in the dirt for, if you win, for like 40 days. So that I feel like I don't have the constitution necessarily to do well. I feel like I would just get sick immediately, which happens to a lot of contestants, and then they get voted out because they can't compete well in the physical challenges because they're sick, and then they're a liability to their tribe. And so I think that's what would happen to me. I would be just like the weak, scrawny guy who can't compete well in the challenges and then gets voted out because they're not useful. What about you, Aidan? What is an opinion of yours that has changed?
I forgot that was the question.
I know, we took a really scenic route to this one.
We're taking a scenic route through all of them.
Yes.
But you're fun to talk to, so it's okay. I don't think I've ever had an opinion of mine change. I think that I've always been perfect, so.
Okay, well, we can move on.
Probably like guns is the biggest thing that's recently changed.
Oh, interesting.
In terms of, yeah, because I used to be like more anti-gun because I grew up in a liberal suburban household and I've literally never touched a gun, and then like a lot of the stuff recently, like for a while, made me veer in this direction of like, holy shit, like I need to get a gun, like I need to arm myself, like the apocalypse is happening, and I went into this sort of panic mode. And then since then, like I've been able to calm myself down a bit and really think about it more rationally again, and think about like, would it be strategic of me to have a firearm? Should I just learn how to use one, but do I actually need one? Like what's the climate like in my local area? Who do I know? Like what other priorities should I put in place before like firearm ownership. So I went from like this place where like my opinion of guns was very based on just what I grew up with, you know, like what sort of the culture or attitude was of the people around me, to something that was more panic based, more emotional reaction to guns, and then from there sort of moving into a more practical, like really thinking through like what are the logistics. I had actually a one-on-one training with a person who cares a lot about gun safety and sort of grew up in a more conservative culture that used guns a lot, and was able to sort of talk me through some of the things to think about related to like, should you open carry or concealed carry, like what type of firearm like should you use, and like gave me training on how to like patch up bullet wounds to different parts of the body, how to use a tourniquet, and then how to like disable firearms and things like that. So when I do eventually like try to shoot a gun, like I'll be prepared and have the knowledge to keep myself and others safe. So
that's a great one.
That's where I'm at.
I think that's really, it sounds like a really good journey to go. I mean, like, I totally agree with you basically just on the idea that like whether or not you think that you necessarily need to have a gun in your house or on your person, I think it's always good to be educated about guns in general. Just like because they are, whether or not you think that other people should have them, they do. Like that is just a reality, especially in America, that you know there's more guns than people or whatever. So I think having a working knowledge of like you said, like having gun safety education of just like what to do if somebody around you gets shot, how to like be around guns safely, regardless of whether or not you personally have one or need to have one to feel safe. I think everybody should at least have some working knowledge of like how guns work and how to be around them safely.
And one thing that like the person that I was training with was telling me is that like hypothetically, if you're in a protest situation or if you volunteer as a street medic, if you get trained as a street medic, if you are in a position in your life where you need to tend to a gunshot wound, if there's nobody else around who's more competent than you are, the first thing that you want to do is disable the firearm to prevent any other injuries from happening. Like, first thing you need to do is unload, discharge, know how to put the safety on, and if you don't know how to do that, then you don't know how to keep people safe, like point blank. And there was actually an incident recently, because I volunteer for the eviction defense hotline in my area, and so one of the people who we are trying to help is somebody who had their landlord come to their house and threaten them with a firearm. And luckily we had somebody from the eviction defense hotline who was just there to supervise the interaction because the tenant felt unsafe. But they were able to de-escalate the situation. And so now we're in positions as like a team talking about like, should we make sure that everybody who is volunteering for the eviction defense team has firearm safety training? Like, should we be organizing those and de-escalation training? Like, should we be organizing those things? And it's just like a weird position to be in, like, oh my god, like this feels like very real now.
Yeah, it has. I feel like it's all become a lot more real in recent times. All of these hypotheticals about guns have become seemingly a lot more real. Some comments from the chat. Taxman says, I agree on guns being needed, but I have a kid, so it's not going to happen. Super Pizza says, I've changed my opinions on every single thing that I believe, LOL. And I kind of also feel that way. I feel like my opinions do change kind of with the wind on a lot of things, or as I learn new things. It's tough because you want to keep an open mind, but you also want to have principles that you stick to. So it's a balance for sure. A Band Show 3000 says NRA needs to suck a dick. And Taxman says NRA doesn't represent the majority of gun owners. So, lots of interesting points being thrown around in the chat. Feel free to use that as a place for discourse. I'd love to continue talking about guns. Feel like we were just on the edge of learning a lot. But we are going to move on to the last question for this round, these first 6 questions, which is... I think we were on this one, right? We were on this, I think so. I think you asked me this one. Is that right?
Okay.
Or wait, no, I asked you the last one.
So what is something unusual that you find charming or attractive?
Okay. Oh, I forgot to get rid of the question. There we go. Something unusual that I find charming or attractive. I don't know. I feel like, well, unusual is tricky because I feel like, especially recently, there's been like a push for like finding attractive, like it used to be, or at least I feel like when we were younger, like the conventional like jock and cheerleader stereotype was like what was considered attractive, and then recently I feel like there's been an empowering movement towards like finding like things that were traditionally not attractive are now considered, you know, not unusual to be attractive, like nerds, like, you know, guy wearing glasses, you know, is like was not originally considered an unusual, charming, attractive thing. Now it's like, of course, guy with glasses is hot. But I would say something unusual would maybe be
Super Pizza has a good answer in chat.
Oh, okay. Let's see that one. I met a girl at a party that was in the middle of an ongoing argument with her best friend, and I was really impressed with how compassionately she responded to her friend's anger and found that super attractive. That is a really good answer. Yeah, definitely. I think I will kind of just use that as a springboard, and that's something that I've sort of learned about myself, and something that I'm attracted to other people is people who are able to address conflict in a way that is productive. I feel like that is a skill that I don't have in my, like, or I haven't had and I'm still working on. Like, I'm super conflict avoidant. I will make concessions on like my principles and stuff based on trying to avoid conflict, or my opinions based on trying to avoid conflict sometimes. And so when I see somebody else, and especially I think women, because traditionally I feel like women are generally considered to be like people who try to make everybody agree, is something that I've heard. Not that I necessarily believe that, but that is sort of like a stereotype of women being people pleasers, as opposed to men who will sort of like aggressively barge into an argument or something and say how they feel. And so when a woman, or anybody really, is able to articulate themselves and disagree in a way that is not like fighting, but like stand up for their opinion and disagree effectively, that is hot.
Also something that I need to work on, because I get very confrontational, like very suddenly. Like I'll just like, I don't have a very good balance. I'll be like either very like agreeable, let's all see each other's perspectives, and then it's like someone says something that pisses me off, and then I'd like go in the entire opposite direction, like fuck you, fuck everything you stand for. So like learning to bring those two together in a way that's actually productive.
Yeah, it's hard. It's balance. What about
Suki,
you?
I really relate to that.
What is Suki?
Yeah.
Suki says, I'm honestly having such a hard time with this question. I'm just too friggin' pansexual. My type is just like hot people, and like everyone is hot. Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah. I find like very, very conventionally attractive people to be like kind of boring to look at sometimes. So like in terms of physical attraction, like I tend to like be attracted to like just like things that like just sort of novelty, like physically speaking, like whether it's like body shape or like I don't know, just like I love people who like look like no one else I've ever seen before, you know? I find that really fascinating. So that's like a physical thing. Okay, I don't know that I should go down this direction, but like you said that it was okay if there was like some sexual tension here and it would make it quote unquote more interesting.
Sure.
So, I don't know if I should. Okay, so like basically like, is it okay if I like say about the thing like that we've talked about in DMs? That,
Sure.
Like, okay, perfect. So, I actually already said this on my stream, so that's like already out in that context. But I asked you on a date like a year and a half ago, and you rejected me, which is fine. I'm not bitter. But the day that I asked you out, I had already been rejected by another person who I had asked out earlier in the day, and I also was rejected from the New York Times. because I submitted 2 crossword puzzles to them, and they got back to me that day saying that that I wasn't good enough to be in the New York Times, which is fine. Whatever. It's not like I spent 20 hours working on a crossword puzzle.
I didn't even know that you could submit, that they take submissions for the crossword puzzles.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that that was just like somebody there at the New York Times who did that.
No, you can submit them. So I submitted 2 puzzles that I co-wrote with other folks, and we submitted them, and that was the day that they got back to me. So I had 3 rejections in one day, and then I was like, this guy Jake is kind of cute, but like at that time I wasn't that like into you. I just sort of thought you were kind of cute, and I was like, eventually I'm gonna ask him out, and he's probably gonna reject me, so I might as well just get all of the rejection over with on one day. And so I just sent you a casual tweet saying like, yo, you want to go on a date? And then you rejected me, but you rejected me in such a nice, like, and pleasant way that I actually went from like, oh, this guy's kind of cute, to like, oh my god, this guy's so cute, oh my god. And so I actually had like a really big crush on you for like a long time after you actually rejected me. So I just think that like just sort of being, I don't know, just like friendly and compassionate and I don't know, I just like really like, for some reason found the way that you rejected me very appealing.
That's very sweet. That is unusual.
Thing, so the question.
That answers the question perfectly. I think I wish I remember what I had said.
You said that you said that like, I don't remember the exact wording. Let's just go on to the next question.
We can move on, but this is exactly the type of oh, look at that. It's actually time. This is actually the perfect time for this.
Okay, great.
It's time for, folks, it's time for the chemistry check. Taxman says, that anti-conflict thing, I'm going to have to get over if I want to go to law school. And yeah, I think hopefully they'll teach me that at the law school, right? But we are going to pull up another poll. And this is after 1 round of 6 questions. And please, 5 is good. 1 is bad. Please rank our chemistry thus far.
A definite improvement so far from all those.
Oh yeah, wow, yeah, absolutely. We had no 4s or 5s on our first chemistry check at the start of the show. Now it seems like everybody's feeling pretty confident that we're in the 4 slot, which is a great improvement. I'm gonna leave this up for another, I'm gonna say 5 seconds. 5, get your votes in, folks. 4, 3, 2, 1, and look at that, it's a unanimous 4. Oh, and we had one more 4 coming in late from Chiropterano. That is a huge improvement from our first round. And I'm gonna make my way back over to the left seat, and here I am.
I really like the font you have for chemistry check for that, like with the little heart.
With the heart. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, there's a lot. This show has arguably too many fonts, but I'm a big fan of fonts. What can I say? I love a good font.
I found the cutest font on Twitter the other day. I should like send it to you.
Please send it to me. I have a firm appreciation of fonts. And another 4 coming in from a band show 3000. Wow, okay, so 4s across the board, that's good. We're looking good. We are gonna move on because we're only a third of the way through the show and we're already at 8:15. I don't know why the show goes so slow. I guess it's because it's really just fun to talk to people. But we're gonna move on to question 7, which is, how would you describe your high school self? And high school is a traumatic time for a lot of people, I feel like. So we can go as deep or as shallow into this as you like, but I do find high school is a formative time for a lot of people, and typically, you know, sort of, well, I suppose formative pretty much covers it. You know, there's interesting things that happen to us. So how would you describe your high school self?
A lot more sexually active than myself. Like, so much more sexually active. My like last major relationship in high school, like me and my girlfriend were having sex 2 to 3 times a day for months. And it was
2 to 3 times a day?
Like, good sex.
How did you even find the time? Didn't you have like homework?
Huh?
Didn't you have like
we were both like so smart. Like we got our homework done with so fast. And we'd like have sex on like on like lunch breaks and stuff, we would like. I went to boarding school because I'm really bougie, and so
Oh,
we lived in
wow.
like we like it was a boarding school, and we had like a nice campus that had like a wooded area, so we would go into the forest on like our breaks and right after school and just like have sex, and it was like one of the best times of my life. Oh my
Whoa!
god!
Perfect timing for the
You
raid.
really missed the.
You just missed the horniest part of the show so far. Nephew Zach and Party of Seven, welcome. It's Falling in Love with, I'm your host, Jake Ellenbogen, and my guest today is AidanWould. And we are talking right now about high school. Which, who would have guessed that would be the horniest part of the show? Maybe anybody. But Aidan was just telling us about how they would have sex 3 times a day for months on end.
Sometimes, mostly it was like 1 to 2 times a day, but it could get up there. So.
Damn, that's
And
impressive.
it was only for like that was like only for a 6-month period in high school. That was like the peak. I haven't had sex since 2018.
2018.
So, like,
That's a good
so
long
it's
dry
been, like,
spell.
yeah. And now when I'm in the pandemic, and
I
like,
know, the
oh,
pandemic
God.
really does not do any favors for
And it's like even if we
for
weren't
the
in the
horny
pandemic,
among
it's
us.
also like, oh cool, fascism is sending across America, and the entire West Coast is on fire, and there's like 2 hurricanes at once, and like, oh my god.
Doesn't
So
really
it
do
feels
much
like-
to set the mood.
Yeah, I'm glad that I got all of the sex over with in high school, because now I'm very. Thank you, Abansha, for the 1 bit.
Oh yes, thank you.
Yeah, so like I appreciate like that my past self got all the sex I'm ever gonna have in my life out of it.
That's good, yeah. Honestly,
Thank
getting
you,
out
yeah,
of
we
that
eat the money, yes, yum yum.
Tax man coming in with the $10 tip. Thank you kindly for that. And also a comment from Taxman earlier that we missed. I was a prude in high school from a sex perspective. And I think that's a lot of people. Super Pizza says, I was a prude too, and I hate religion for depriving me of a sex life. I think that's a common thing. A lot of people, especially those who grow up in religious or conservative households, tend not to have a super sexy high school experience. But that just means that, you get to have all those experiences, arguably at a time when you're more emotionally and mentally prepared to have them.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah.
So that is how you would describe your experience, Aiden.
No, that's just the first thing that came to mind. Like, I was like a really, really, really awkward high schooler because, as I mentioned, like I didn't really develop social skills until like more recently, like maybe like halfway through college, near the end of college, and it's still like very much a work in progress, learning how to like talk to people, which actually has been the biggest thing to like help me develop those skills. But like in high school, I was very much like the weird person that like would talk to themselves in the middle of hallways, and like I was known for like skipping everywhere. So I would often like, and like again, like we had like a campus because it was a boarding school, and I would like often like skip like 15 minutes to class through the woods. Yeah.
This sounds like Harry Potter. I can see now why you were so connected to the idea of Harry Potter. Now that boarding school is a unique experience. What was that? I'm just curious about, because I've never been to a boarding school, but I lived for a year in England, and the school that I went to had a boarding high school. So I kind of like was peripherally around boarding school. I guess you don't have any other experience really. Did you ever go to a non-boarding school through primary schools?
I went to like middle school and elementary school at a public school, and then I got a lot of like I was able to get into the boarding school based on like scholarship and grant money, and my mom working her freaking ass off and going like thousands and thousands of dollars into credit card debt on my behalf. So I really appreciate that. The reason I went to boarding school primarily was because like I had like an abusive parent, and so like an abusive parent, but who also was like very academically driven, and so it was like sort of like a win-win way for me to like get out of the house and like be like an hour and a half away and able to like develop myself and my own space that like also this parent like approved of. And yeah, but so yeah, it was like a good like way of like having like freedom for the first time in my life. And part of the reason I was so isolated growing up is because like I just sort of like dealt with a lot of stuff by just completely withdrawing to the world, like not talking. Like I could like not talk to another human being for like hours and hours and hours at a time. Just so like I don't know, being in like a space where I could sort of trial and error, figure out like who I am was really beneficial. And like the actual school I went to was like a beautiful campus. Actually, speaking of Harry Potter, like there were rumors that like some scenes of Harry Potter were the school was like a location scout considered using the school for scenes in Harry Potter, and if you visit the school, it's very easy to tell why. Like it's beautiful, and there's like these like forests and this like gorgeous lake. I don't know. It was just like a wonderful place to be in, so I'm very grateful for that.
Wow, that sounds
and
awesome.
Also, Mattman, we'll hook you up, okay? Like we'll figure it out. Let's talk in the Discord. Like let's get you laid.
Yes, we will get that. We will make that happen. I mean, that's part of what this show is all about. Is it's not just the host, it's not just the guest, but the chat should also be able to find love at some point through this show, and if not love, at least sex. So that is definitely part of the thesis of this project. What
were you like in high school? Yeah.
My high school experience, I was not having sex every day. Certainly not 3 times a day. Definitely also not every day. I did have sex in high school a couple of times. That's when I lost my virginity. But I would say that my high school experience was not defined really by sex. I do relate definitely with being sort of a loner, especially in my freshman and sophomore year. I definitely feel like I didn't really have like a gang or like a clique or a friend group necessarily. Not that I was like persona non grata, but I was just sort of like a floater who kind of just could like, socialize fine with everybody, but not really invited to the kickbacks and parties, etc. Mostly because I made a really good friend in middle school he lived in England and I lived in America, and we would every night just like get on Skype and play video games together. And so I would have this one friend who I could hang out with ostensibly alone in my room with all through my freshman and sophomore year of high school. And so instead of like talking to real people who I was in the hallways with at school or like trying to make an effort to make friends, I would just hang out with this one guy and play video games every night. And it was really fun. But by like junior and senior year of high school, I had finally started to like ingratiate myself. Hello, Squishy Tay, welcome. You're not late, you're right on time. We're on question, I don't know, I think maybe like 7 or 8. But yeah,
I would say... We already answered your question.
Yes, we answered one of the questions you submitted, but I think we have 2 more of yours in here at some point, so we might get to those. So stick around, Squishy Tay. But yeah, I would say ultimately, I would describe my high school self as sort of socially awkward, especially in my freshman and sophomore year. Less so in my junior and senior year, but way more socially awkward than college, which is when I feel like I sort of spread my social butterfly wings and emerged from my awkward... Yes, I blossomed in college, for sure. So high school was sort of like a training ground for that. But yeah, that's how high school was for me. It was okay. Not as traumatic as I think it is for a lot of people, but also not exactly a cakewalk. I was such a pretentious turd in high school, says Asuki. Well, it sounds like you're at least self-aware to know that now, which means that you're probably no longer a pretentious turd. Living with parents sucks, says Mattman, and yeah, living with parents is pretty brutal. I'm glad to no longer live with my parents. I was a pretentious turd too. Wow, a lot of pretentious turds. That's interesting. Pretentious is an interesting way to self-describe in high school, I think. I don't know a lot of people who necessarily would describe themselves that way, but that's interesting. I want to learn more about that, but I do think we need to move on. So we're going to go on to the next question here, that being question 8. Do you have any unusual family... I'm just going to ask you all the questions because I forget the order that we did. But I'm going to ask you and then...
Even numbers, I asked you, so...
Oh, okay. You asked me the even numbers. That's right. I do remember that now. You asked me this one then.
Okay. Do you have any unusual family traditions?
Thanks for that question, Aiden. I have a couple of unusual family traditions. One that that immediately comes to mind is singing happy birthday through the phone on birthdays, and more specifically, so that's the thing. I don't know if other people do that. I know a lot of people call family members on their birthday to say happy birthday. My family has a tradition of like getting everybody in the room together. If it's like a family of cousins and stuff, like everybody gets in the room and over the phone sings happy birthday. And then more specifically, this is one, really only my oldest brother and I do this, but we try to sing happy birthday in the lowest baritone voice possible, which
Can you give us a sample?
Yeah, I could try. Hold on. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Dad. Happy birthday to you. Damn,
Beautiful.
Jake, there's that Jonks voice, and I don't know what you're talking about, Super Pizza, but could be anybody who voices Jonks. But yes, that is a tradition of mine in my family. Definitely singing happy birthday over the phone. But the low baritone voice, I think, is a specific maybe to my family. Although maybe other people do that. Asuki always says they always sing happy birthday over the phone and didn't realize that's weird. And maybe it's not actually. Squishy Tay also does this. So maybe this is not unusual at all, actually.
Maybe can you think of another one?
I will try to think of another one, but I'm going to throw the question over to you while I think. Maybe
Okay.
something that you say will inspire me.
Okay, cool. And I'm just doing like some like resistance band stuff.
Hey,
because
sure,
I've
yeah,
been sitting in the chair
multitask.
for a while, and I can feel my like body sort of starting to shut down. Yeah. So when I was in, when I was like 14, actually basically freshman year of college, me and my younger brothers, whenever they went into freshman year of college, we all went through this like really intense atheist phase. Where, we all were like very like not just not believing God, but very anti-religion. In part because that was around the time that we lost contact with the aforementioned abusive parent, who was very, very, very religious. And so I feel like it was kind of a process for us to like, we went through sort of the 5 stages of grief when we became atheists. Like we had like a lot of anger, a lot of like, a little battery, whatever. Okay. So it was like a whole thing. And so we didn't really want to celebrate Christmas, because we were all like we don't believe in Jesus or whatever. He's not the Son of God. And so what we wanted at the presents, and we were like the family time, and we had the days off school anyways. So what we started doing is celebrating the winter solstice instead. So we just basically like did all of the normal like or regular Christian stuff. Like we would have like the presents under the tree, like we would like maintain all of our old traditions, but we wouldn't like exalt Jesus. There were no nativity scenes, and it was a few days earlier, so we got our presents a few days earlier, and we got to play with them the rest of Christmas break, and
Nice.
yeah, so that was fun. And we still do that, like we still like will open our presents on the winter solstice instead of on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day.
That is cool, and I think that is unusual. It's a secular, non-Christmas Christmas.
Mm-hmm. And when I eventually like have my own family and like start to really try and invest in like developing traditions, I feel like I want to like do some sort of event, like a big community potluck or like something like for all of the solstices and equinoxes. I don't know. I just like that idea.
I like that idea too. I might actually take a page from your book in that case, because I like the vibe of Christmas, like just the holiday cheer and like family oriented aspects of it. But I do feel like there could be a way to do that without necessarily having to tie in the religious aspects.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna move on because I feel like we gotta keep moving.
Yes.
This is another audience submitted question from Squishy Tay. Again, if you'd like to submit questions, please do so in our Discord, link down below. This is one that I'm going to ask you first. What is something that you think, whoa, Cool Guy Gorbis coming in with the 5 viewers. Thank you, Cool Guy Gorbis, and welcome. We are on to another question here, which is, what is something that you think people should appreciate more about you? And I keep forgetting to take the question off the screen. There we go.
And real quick, I just want to say, Cool Guy Corpus is my younger brother George. He just started streaming on Twitch, and if everybody could go follow him, he's almost to affiliate. Please do. And I promised him that if he rated everything Now Show Tonight, I would get him at least a couple more followers to get him closer to the affiliate goal. So we need a couple people to go follow him. Otherwise, I'm a liar.
Shouts out. Cool Guy Gorbis, please, if you haven't already, go give him a follow. Let's get him to affiliate. I don't know how to do the shout out command. Aidan is a mod in my chat though, so maybe I don't know. Can you?
I'm not a mod.
Oh, you're not a mod? You really should be. All right, well,
you can mod me if you want.
Do we have any mods in our chat right now? I don't really know how any of that stuff works. Shouts out Cool Guy Gorbis. You can click their username if you're in the chat right now. Go to their channel, give them a follow. Let's get them to affiliate.
My Gorbis is the person who lent me his resistance band so that I can do this on stream.
Oh, heck yeah.
We're talking.
Awesome.
Cool.
Well,
so what's something that more people should appreciate about me?
Yes, what is something that more people should appreciate about you?
I have a lot of weird knowledge about animals.
Oh, really?
And how to take care of animals. So, when I was like in high school, or in college, I got really into Facebook groups. You know, like I don't know if you're familiar with like Facebook group subculture.
I am not super familiar, but I've had a lot of people tell me this, that there is like a very interesting subculture, and I've only superficially kind of grazed the surface of it, but tell me more.
So I ended up like joining like every Facebook group, every time I saw a recommended Facebook group, I would join it. Whether it was like a weird like niche like tagging group, like weird meme groups, like weird spin-off groups, like there's like certain like networks of groups that have all spun off from each other. It's very fascinating. But I would just like join these weird Facebook groups and just like sort of, I wouldn't usually like engage with them very much. I would just like sit and like analyze their culture. I was like a little internet anthropologist or something. I don't know. It was very fun. And that's why I can't use Facebook anymore, because I'm in so many groups. It's like I can't use Facebook for anything else, and I no longer open the app. But I ended up joining a bunch of animal groups. So I'm in Guinea Pigs UK. I'm in Pet Skunks USA. I'm in horse groups, lizard groups, fish groups, like Beta Care. Like I'm in like freshwater aquarium groups. I'm in hamster. I'm like a bajillion different hamster groups and rat groups and all sorts of stuff. Like there's like different groups for different types of birds and stuff. I'm in a sugar glider group and like rescue farm animal groups, and like just like the differences between like these, I don't know. It's like, okay, so like the types of people who rescue farm pigs and like rehabilitate like rescued farm pigs are just very different than people who buy like $300 sugar gliders that are exported from Italy.
Yeah, I bet.
I don't know. It's just like there's like all these different weird subcultures and like different personalities and different rules that are just really fascinating. But in the process of like analyzing all these like groups, I ended up learning a lot about how to care for different types of animals. Like a lot. I know like, and so like when my roommate like got a beta fish, I was like, she was like keeping him in like the worst conditions, and I ended up like going to Petco and spending like $200 on equipment for my roommate's beta fish, because like I knew that she wasn't taking good care of it. And like, yeah, so, and like when my other roommate had a cat, like I was like and the cat got lost, I was like, I know how to find your lost cat, like don't worry, like we'll get him, we'll find him. And I was able to like help her find him within like 2 days. So I don't know, I just have like a lot of weird random knowledge of, oh yeah, I did also save an injured baby squirrel 2 days ago, I think, maybe yesterday. I don't remember. It was fun. It was I hope it's okay. I should call the rescue and ask how it's doing. Yes, Squishy Tay. It's so fascinating. Oh, I don't know.
Are you aware of like I've heard about these, I'm sure you are probably, this like subculture, I think specifically on YouTube, of like people who own like 1 million different types of animals. That's like
I listened to a podcast episode like that was an in-depth interview with one of those people.
Was it the episode of Reply All?
It was the episode of Reply All. I love Reply All.
Yeah, me too.
Oh my god, it was
I listened to
good.
that episode too. That's what made, when you started describing like these groups and stuff, that's immediately where my head went, was to that interview with that person. It was super fascinating.
And some of the people that are in those groups have like, some of them are like specifically like, I am a skunk mama. Like I have pet skunks, and here are my albino skunks, and here are the different care needs for albino skunks versus these other types of skunks, and like here's why you cannot rescue a wild skunk. Here's how I don't know. It's like, so like some of them are like skunk people, you know, or like I'm a hamster person. I am a hamster mom. I'm a guinea pig mom. Don't fucking talk to me about rats or mice. But like other people are like, oh yeah, here are my like 42 different kinds of fish, and I also have 3 snakes and 2 parrots, and like I have 4 goats that just sort of hang out in the backyard that I mostly take care of. I don't know. It's just like so fascinating to me. Sorry, I got really excited for a second.
No, that's good. That's what I want. These questions should hopefully elicit some excitement, at least some of them. I think that's a great answer.
But that was the squishy take question, right?
That was a squishy take question. It was something that you wish more people would appreciate about you, and I think that answers it perfectly. Because I had absolutely no idea that you had this knowledge of animals, but now having had you explain it makes a lot of sense. And if I ever have problems with animals coming forward, you may be one of the first people I ask.
Okay, and if I can't help you out, I will find resources. I will be the bitch with the hookup, and I will get
there we go. Yes, and that's a callback to earlier. Yes, you will either be the person who knows about animals, or you will be the bitch with the hookup.
Okay, and what about you? I'm sure there's a lot of things that people don't appreciate enough about you. You just give off that vibe of somebody who's like very talented and does not get enough credit for it.
Oh my goodness, that's so sweet. I was actually really struggling to come up with an answer to this one, and I don't even know if this is necessarily a good answer, but it's something that I think about, which is that I feel like I don't know if this is a useful thing or even something necessarily to be appreciated, but I feel like I'm really good at talking to like boomer-aged people. Like I grew up, like my parents are both really old for someone to be a parent of me, and so I grew up around older people. Like all of their friends were their age, and I like sort of was raised as an only child, even though I have 3 half older siblings. They were all like essentially adults and out of the house by the time, like during my formative years. So I spent a lot of time just kind of like at cocktail parties, following around my parents, and so I really got good at just like talking to old people and like charming, sweet like 50 and 60-year-old ladies and like old dudes who are like my parents' friends, and I feel like in a way that I think a lot of people get nervous about, like the idea of like meeting their girlfriend's parents or like going to a wedding and having to deal with like in-laws and like older, you know, like interacting with older people. Like I usually feel more comfortable around older people than I do in like a group. Like if we're talking about strangers, like I would much rather socialize with a group of like old boomer age people where I kind of like generally have a sense of what they're into. You can kind of be the cool like bridge to the millennial group and like be the person who they complain about young people these days, etc., etc. Whereas like with people my own age, I feel on edge. I feel like I'm not the cool guy in the room. Squishy Tay says, I relate to this. I'm glad you do. My parents are 72 and 75, actual boomers. Sunbro, I'm right there with you. My dad just turned 76 this year, so full-blown legit-ass boomer mode. My language structure is
I
built
know
for
your language
business.
structure, and that is, I can totally see that. I can totally see, like, just the way you talk. Like, I can see why, like, an older generation would, like, really click with you.
Yeah, that is awesome. My dad is also 76. Wow, Squishy Tay. We've already talked about you as coming on as a potential guest, potentially. Spoiler alert for next week. And if that happens, I would love to talk it more in depth about having old ass dads, because I feel like we've got a lot to cover there. It's all fun and games until my racist uncle starts being racist, and yeah, there's definitely a give and take when it comes with talking to older generations. You know, it's tough to relate to some of those things. My parents are 70, which is weird, so text me.
My job, because, well, okay, I actually was able to get out of calling voters, and now I'm just writing letters to voters, but, like, calling, like, voters in, like, North Carolina and Kentucky or Maine, like, or Pennsylvania, and, like, trying to talk to them about politics, and, like, I don't know. I don't like it, and I'm glad I don't have to do it anymore. But I'm guessing you'd be a lot better at it.
Maybe so. I mean, it's tough because I feel like one of my weaknesses is talking to strangers, but one of my strengths is talking to old people. So I don't know if those things cancel each other out. But it'd be an interesting experiment for sure. I do think we need to move on. Although this question was really fun. We're gonna go on to question. I want to say 9, 10, 9. Let's see what 9 was. That was that. So we did that one. Now we're on 10. Have you ever had a recurring dream? And I used to think that the word was, and I accidentally left the question on the screen yet again. I used to think that the word was reoccurring, but it's actually recurring. And I don't know if reoccurring is a different word, but the word is spelled recurring. So that's interesting and something that I feel like many people probably are either mispronouncing or don't realize.
Apparently they're both words, and they're both valid words, and they have very similar meanings, but they have some like slight difference. And I just decided I don't care, so I'm gonna.
Okay.
Anyway.
I know you are a big fan of words and linguistics, as am I, and so we could spend hours, I'm sure, on the distinction between recurring and reoccurring. But for the sake of the show, let's just talk about our dreams. And so I will ask you this question first because I think you asked me. Or no, I asked you the question first last time because I answered second.
Jake, just tell me about your dreams.
Okay, so I have one specific recurring dream that I had as a child and have not had in a very long time, but it recurred or reoccurred multiple times in my childhood to the point that it is still pervasive in my memory today. And I'll walk you through what happens to the best of my ability. It's been, like I said, probably at least 10 or 15 years since I've actually had this dream, but it really impacted me as a child. So it was, the dream begins and I'm in the gymnasium of my elementary school, and we're all gathered around, sitting around the middle, and in the middle of the gymnasium, the lights are sort of dimmed with a spotlight in the middle of the gymnasium, and inside the spotlight is our music teacher, who is with like a crowbar or something, opening a like Egyptian sarcophagus. And it's unclear why we're in there. It seems like the general vibe is just kind of like this is some sort of educational presentation about history or something. It's not really clear. But the music teacher is opening up this sarcophagus, and then there's just sort of like screaming and commotion. You don't really see what's in the sarcophagus, but people are running out of there, and I'm sort of with this group, and we run outside of the gymnasium, and I go into the boys' bathroom, and the boys' bathroom is sort of like a lounge, like it's like a cool kind of like weird place to hang out, and there's like a bouncy castle in there. And I go in there, and and it's like apparent that whatever was in the sarcophagus has now escaped and is chasing people, presumably to like kill them or something. But we're running away, trying to hide from this thing that was in the sarcophagus. And I finally like find this like sort of corner of the boys' bathroom lounge area to hide in, and I'm like sort of under these like covers, and there's a guy in there sitting on like a stool that you would see like a stand-up would have next to him on a stage, and he's like plucking either a guitar or a banjo, I don't know, but he's just kind of like not quietly, he's like playing guitar or banjo, and there's just this visceral feeling that I remember having of like, you need to stop doing that because you're going to draw attention of the whatever monster thing that is chasing us. And then I wake up.
That sounds like an exhausting dream to have once, let alone many times.
I think I probably had that dream a dozen times as a child, and I don't know what it means or why, but that is a recurring dream that I've had. Have you ever had a recurring dream?
Okay, none that are that interesting or that clear. What I do have is, like, I have a lot of dreams that are it's very easy to psychoanalyze and very much related to things that I'm doing, like, before I fall asleep or that I care about a lot. Like, I've had a lot of, like, political dreams lately. Like, I'll have dreams where I'm, like, breaking into ICE facilities to try and, like, break people out. And I'll have, I'll have, like, sort of dreams like that, but they're all, like, usually very different in terms of format. well, the types of recurring dreams I do have are usually dreams where I'm scrolling through social media. It is always the social media site that I've like been like seeking my or sinking, that's the word, sinking my teeth into lately. Whether it's like Facebook group culture, or whether it's Twitter or Tumblr or whatever. Like whatever I've been like really like engaging with, I'll have dreams where I'm just scrolling through the platform, and like my brain as I'm sleeping will generate posts, like will generate content. Like I'll like read like a like Tumblr fanfic, and then like I'll keep scrolling, and then there's art, and then there's discourse, and then there's like cute fan art, and then there's photography, and then there's like a funny joke. And I never remember the actual content, but I always wake up when I find a post that I go to like or retweet or share or whatever, and I can't do it. And then I'm like, oh wait, this is a dreaming and none of this is real. And then I wake up. And those dreams are so fucking exhausting because like you're generating all of that content, and like I always like wake up like completely like more tired than when I went to sleep. So and then I always am like, I should maybe like stop spending so much time on social media, but then I don't. I just keep doing it.
That is super fascinating. The idea of like, I've always thought about like that idea of like the idea of like being surprised or like feeling like you're learning something in a dream, because like ostensibly all the information that's in your dream is already in your head because you're dreaming it and thinking about it. But I've, like you said, like I've had moments where I read like a funny tweet, or I'm like, who thought of that? Like I feel like I guess I did think of that, but then in the my consciousness in the dream is like being amused by, I guess, my own thought, which I don't know what that means. Like it feels like something that you couldn't think of, that like somebody else is showing you. Do you have that feeling ever, like where you are surprised by something someone's saying?
Okay, so like I'm like an atheist or whatever, or like I'm not like a strong atheist anymore. I'm like a chill, like just sort of vibing, person. But like I have this like sort of like philosophy of like life, the universe, and everything, about like how every person is just a manifestation of a greater universal energy, and so part of the reason like I was able to eventually let go of my like competitiveness with other people, and just start like seeing people as like collaborators more than like people that I should judge myself against, is like perceiving me and like you, for instance, or Squishy Tay or Super Pizza or Suki and Chad or whoever, as like the same person, like the same like universal creature that's just perceiving a different facet of the world at one time. Kind of like I might be the thumb of this creature and then you might be the pinky toe, but we're both like contributing to like the experience of the universe as it learns to perceive itself. And then I have this and this is something I've never told to anybody else. So like I hope you guys are like feeling like
exclusive scoop on falling in love with, finally.
But I always feel like part of the role of dreams is both processing what you have seen, like sort of like reporting back to the universe of like the things that you have perceived in the world. But then also like you're sort of like more isolated from that universal energy when you're awake, but when you dream you're connected to it, so you can report back to it, but then also like receive things from other people in a way. But that's something that I just like personally think it doesn't like impact the way that I actually operate in the world. But I'll sometimes wake up from a really weird dream. Like I had one of the dreams I had where I was like breaking into an ICE facility, and like those dreams are always weird because they usually don't have any guards or detainees. I'm very concerned about like the physical layout of the facility, and like I had a dream where like I was like getting a tour. I was like a new guard in an ICE facility, but I was secretly there to like break people out, and I was like getting a tour of the layout of the facility, and it was all like dingy, but like it was all like completely abandoned. But I was like getting a tour as though like people were supposed to be there, and then there was this one room that was like really like, it looked like an old classroom. It was really dirty. It was like disgusting. But in the center of the room, there was a bathtub, and it was like a little square bathtub, and it was made out of gold. And it could be filled with either rose water or a different type of water, like a lilac, like a white lilac water or something like that, or like a blossom water. And they were like, yeah, like this is where we like give people like baths depending on like which type of like water they choose. And I have no idea where that fucking came from in my brain. Like I feel like it did not come from my head. I don't know, but like it clearly like was in the context of other stuff that I've been thinking about lately and like concerned about. So it feels like a blend of me and something that's like higher or different than me. I don't know.
No, I 100% feel that. I've had a lot of similar thoughts, especially in the times that I've taken mushrooms. But we can't really go too deep into that right now,
Okay.
especially because we do have a question that will probably circle back to these ideas. So I don't
Okay.
want to spend too much time on it right now. But that is fascinating, and I hope we get to talk a little bit more about that later. But we're going to move on to question 11, which is, and I will ask you this question: what, if you could have any superpower, what would it be? A classic icebreaker question.
I just want to say, Super Pizza, I like your Thanos stick dream.
I have a recurring dream where I did the Thanos slap, but I had an intrusive thought and at the last second and accidentally turned everybody into dicks. And I don't know if that means into dicks as the colloquialism for a mean asshole person or literal dicks. So if you want to clarify that in the chat, please, you're welcome to, Super Pizza. But Aiden, no, go ahead, sorry.
With related to animism, I am aware of animism. There's a lot of different varieties, so I'm still learning about the different varieties of animism. That's not the point. Point is, I think that something that I would really like is the ability to be resilient, like physically, like in terms of being able to like hike 1,000 miles and not feel pain, to be like shot by a bullet and to like have my body like heal itself, or to get like, okay, this is also like very related to like things that like I've obviously been like concerned about lately. Like,
Yeah.
would you like the ability to have like your entire city filled with smoke and the sky turn red and like not have it affect you physically, or things like that, or like being sprayed with tear gas and not feel pain and like being able to like still operate. Like having that resiliency, not necessarily strength. Like strength is important, but like I think that strength without like pure physical strength can't like save you if you are like shot with a gun, or if you are poisoned, or if you, I don't know, if you starve or whatever. I don't know. It might be stupid. What about you?
I don't think it's stupid. I think it's really interesting actually that you are thinking about like actual what's going on in the world as it relates to this question, because I feel like I've had the same answer to this question since like high school. I've always it's like my go-to fantasy if I'm trying to like zone out or fall asleep. It's like one of those things where I always think about the idea of being able to control time, specifically to slow it down, like how like the Flash does. And I've thought a lot about this, how the science would work about it, because like obviously there are like physical, like if we're talking about a world where the laws of physics still kind of work, you can't really like completely stop time. Like the idea of like stopping time doesn't really work, because then like air molecules aren't moving and like you would be shredded by the atmosphere by trying to like move through it like a cheese grater, just because like your body would be moving through immovable, like assuming time is stopped except for my physical body, like all the air around me would be frozen in time, and so I wouldn't be able to move because I'd be trapped by the air that's surrounding my body. Or like, do my clothes also move at this speed? So by controlling time, it usually means like slowing time down exceptionally to a rate that is extremely slow, but still technically moving, so that I am moving so quickly that it's almost imperceivable. But I just fantasize like, you know, getting into a fight and someone like trying to punch me, and I can just like slow down time and like evade it, like, you know, bullet time in the Matrix. But then the other thing that complicates it is like, if I'm slowing down time and like moving within this like realm that is removed from the normal timeline, am I aging more quickly because of that? Like, for example, if I were to like go to school, if I'm in high school and I go to school and I realize that I forgot my, you know, my big term paper or whatever at home, and I slow down time and I run back home and I go get it and bring it back, does that 15 minutes of aging represent like 15 minutes for me, but 2 seconds in real life? Like, so am I aging more? Does that make sense? Like, is my body aging more quickly because I am traveling through time at a different rate than everybody else? So even if that were the case, I think that's a good trade-off. I would still like to be able to control time in that way.
Okay, I just want to say, okay. First of all, fuck like the questions, and I'm just gonna take some time to like talk about this, because that's okay. That just gives me the idea for like a show, like a TV show or a web series maybe, that features a group of beings that have that power. and have like essentially slow time to nearly imperceptible motion. And the entire show takes place in like that time that's been slowed down. And I think like a cool thing would be to have a plot line, or to have like time cannot speed up again unless every character agrees that it should.
Whoa.
You know, at the same time. You know, so like, and the entire show like takes place like every other person is frozen, every other part of the world is frozen except for the main cast, right? And like dealing with like, until like we all get moving, I won't be able to speak to my like partner, my like romantic partner who's not one of us, like ever again until we get this going. But also like what can be accomplished in those seconds, like what, I don't know, that's like, I just had that idea.
That is cool. I like that idea.
Anyways.
Yeah, write that down.
Can someone write that down, because I don't have a paper near me.
Squishy Tay is recommending something called The Girl Who Leapt Through Time. If I haven't seen it, I'd probably dig it. Yeah, that sounds awesome. I will definitely check that out. Similar vibe for me.
When you started talking about time stuff, I thought you were going to talk about like time travel, like traveling back in time, because time travel gives me so much anxiety. I hate time travel in media because it gives me like so much like existential anxiety, and like I get thinking about like the ontological paradoxes. And
yeah, totally.
I need to pet my cat.
I 100% agree. Time travel is like one of my biggest pet peeves in any narrative piece, because it just like inevitably will create these paradoxes that are always glossed over in a way that is never satisfying to me. But time manipulation, moving things very quickly or very slowly, I think much more interesting, and not used nearly enough as a plot device. So writers out there, get on it. Asuki said, similar vibe for me. One of my daydreams is having a room where time doesn't pass and I can just go in and chill and the world will be exactly as I left when I go back out. Yeah, absolutely. I totally feel that.
I get so stressed out when I'm like, I feel depressed. I just want to lie down for 4 hours, but then it's like I'm not doing things. I'm not like helping anybody. I'm not like doing anything meaningful. I'm just like lying there in my like stewing in my own fucking like psychological and physical filth.
Yes, psychological and physical filth is something that I'm intimately familiar with. And yeah, I totally feel. Are you a clock stopper? Yes, I remember there's that movie Clock Stoppers where they have the watch and they can stop it, and there's one scene specifically that sticks out to me where they're like looking at a bee and you can see the bee, they like slow down, they're like, oh my god, did you stop time? And they're like, no, we just made time really, really slow. Look at that bee. And then the bee is just like flapping its wings like super slow. I'm like, oh, I get it. Makes a lot of sense.
Okay,
cool way to visualize that. Alright, yes, we are moving on to the next question. The next question is question number 12? Yes.
So this is a question I ask you.
This is a question you can ask me.
Is there a story about your childhood about yourself that you don't remember? Sorry, I have to like move my webcam. Oh, there we go. It's on screen now. Is there a story from your childhood about yourself that you don't remember?
Yes, there is. Thanks for asking, Aiden. A story from my childhood that I don't remember that has been regaled to me many times. One of my mom's favorite stories about me was from my sister's wedding. I was the ring bearer, and my mom was getting fitted for her dress to this wedding. She had like, I don't know what this person is called, a seamstress, I guess. She was like having this like custom dress made for my sister's wedding. And I was a toddler at the time. I was probably like 2 years old. And she had brought me along to this fitting for her dress at the seamstresses, whatever place where seamstresses work. And they were like in the front of the room, like in a separate room. I was in the room where all the fabric for the dress to be made was. And my mom was like settling the bill or whatever with this woman. And she says that she remembers me sort of like toddling into this room where her and the seamstress were, covered completely head to toe in Vaseline and like hair slicked back fully with Vaseline, like having it like dripping off my eyelids and like I had gotten in, so they went into the other room and I had gotten into this Vaseline that I guess the seamstress used to like have smooth hands so she could work with fabric. I'd like opened this tub of Vaseline, covered myself completely with it, and also covered the entire dress that my mother had just had custom made for my sister's wedding. with Vaseline. And I have zero recollection of this. No, it is not in my memory at all, other than the fact that it has been told to me so many times by my mom as this incredibly traumatic experience for her. Moral of the story is she was able to get the fabric dry clean or whatever. It ended up not being a huge deal, but just the visual moment of, yes, literally great Greasy Strangler mode. True Gem, great, really great ref. I saw Greasy Strangler, quick aside, I saw Greasy Strangler at this like fun little independent theater when I was in college with some friends, and it was, I don't know if I really liked that movie, but I was like, it's cool that this movie got made, even though I did not really enjoy it. I meta enjoyed it in that I was like, damn, this is a fucking weird movie, and I'm glad that it got made.
Squishy Tay is asking the real questions.
Jake, this could be the biggest scam in the world. What if you were framed for a crime you didn't commit? Honestly, I don't know what the motive is necessarily, other than to guilt me, which is not unlike my mother to do as a sweet Catholic woman that she is. Guilting is like very much in her toolkit, so that could be what this is just a perpetual guilt. But I believe it. I feel like, it's good of she said she was so shocked that it happened because I was such a sweet baby who never did anything wrong. But I know that I'm not a sweet baby, and I have done things wrong. So it doesn't shock me. Not Tay. I'm sorry. I'm talking to Tay because I'm reading their name in the chat. But Aiden, is there a story about yourself that you don't remember?
Probably, but I don't remember the stories about myself that I don't remember. I've been trying to think of one.
Do you have any stories, maybe that you do remember, but stories that are like family stories about yourself?
I just want to say thank you, Sembra, for pointing that out. I don't know what I want to do with that quote. Like, do I want to make a meme of Jake that has that quote emblazoned on it? Do I want to embroider it on a T-shirt and send it to you? I am not a sweet baby. But I want to do something.
We do need some new Everything Now merch. I don't think we've done a new run of merch since the first time we did a run of merch, which was like almost probably 6 months ago, maybe more. So potentially a new Everything Now show shirt with I'm Not a Sweet Baby.
Jimmy Jam says we all have drinking stories, but I do have a drinking story of the only one. Like, I think the only time I've gotten blackout drunk. Should I tell that?
Yes, absolutely. And Squishy Tay, absolutely also. Let's collab on merch, please. Please, can you message in the Discord or something so that I don't forget that? Because absolutely I want to collab with you on merch. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Aiden, please share your story.
Okay, so I once got really drunk at a workplace Christmas party.
Nice.
I just got a Donald Trump email. Go away. Wait 1 second. Also, real quick, I just realized my phone's at 1% battery. Super real quick.
Oh,
okay, anyways,
shit.
I'm definitely not procrastinating. My phone is actually at 1% battery. I don't feel bad about the thing I'm about to say at all. Just so everybody knows.
Good. I also just got, it's the message that Squishy Tay just said.
Okay.
I'm buzzing.
No, yeah, I am signed up for Donald Trump's email list, both because I want to be aware and also I want to fuck with their data analytics. And so I have to sign up for a bunch of phone messages, and I like to sign up for their rallies, and make them think that more people are going to be there. But that's just a little hobby.
Yeah, I like that.
So I got blackout drunk at a workplace holiday party.
Yes.
And so, long story short, I ended up telling a coworker that I wanted to suck his dick. And I told him this right in front of our manager.
Your mutual manager?
Yes, our mutual manager. And no one told me that I had done that the next day. No one told me that I had done that for 2 weeks after the event. And during that entire time, I was just treating work as business as usual.
Oh my god. How did you eventually find out?
Because someone eventually told me. They were someone made a comment of I don't know, I don't know that something whatever Aiden wants to do, I can't believe you're doing that after what happened at the workplace holiday party. And I was like, what do you mean?
Oh,
They're like,
no.
you know, that thing you did, like that awkward thing. They're like, I don't know what you're talking about. And they're like, oh shit. Has no one told you that? Were you blackout drunk? We all assumed that you knew, and we were just not addressing it. Also, I wrote a, hold up, real quick. I'm gonna go to AidanWould.com.
Go to AidanWould.com.
I'm going to AidanWould.com/writing. I also wrote a story. So before this happened, I had written a story, like a short story about the fact that I wanted to suck a stick. And I found that story recently while going through some old writings, and like, so I'm gonna post a link to that story in chat. It's like a cheesy little story. Frankly, I probably should like actually go and edit it.
Wavy lines, you're just in time.
Wavy, no, stop it. Oh god.
Welcome. We finally have a mod in the chat also, that's good.
Yeah. So you could, anyone who wants to can feel free to read it. I was just reading, like, I found that old story and I was like, this is such an embarrassing time of my life. And it's like, well, like, if I don't tell anybody the context of the story, it's just a story about wanting to give someone a blowjob using, like, cigarettes as, like, a metaphor for a penis, which is, like, I know, like, very done. We don't need to talk about this, Wavy. It's fine. Anyways, what's the next question?
Let's go on to the next question. That's a good question. The next question is question 13, which is, do you believe in love at first sight?
This is a question for me or you?
This is a question for you first.
I guess no. I think that you can like really like somebody at first sight, and you can definitely feel less at first sight. But I feel like people view love in this very like abstract, romantic way of thinking about things. Like it's sort of like sort of like a spiritual higher thing. Like you're meant to be with somebody. Like it's an instant connection. And I think that you can have like those chemical reactions when you first see somebody, but I don't think that love is this grand like spiritual like higher thing. I think that it's just an experience, and it's more than an experience. It's an action or a series of actions. It's a pattern of behavior that you commit to do because you. Oh well, thank you, Av. Again, you guys can use sound alerts to respond to things happening on the stream.
Oh yeah.
Oh, Sunbro says I didn't till I discovered everything Masho.
That is very sweet.
But yeah, I think that like, because like, if you like love someone at first sight and it feels like love at first sight, and they love you at first sight, and you like end up in a relationship, but like when that initial chemical feeling fades, like, are you still going to be committed to taking care of this person? And like, just like any other experience we have with our bodies, whether it's like hunger or exhaustion or excitement or depression, like everything is temporary, you know. It's that we have all of these like physical chemical fluctuations. I feel like expecting someone to be in love 100% of the time, like from the moment you meet somebody to like the day you guys die, is not like realistically like how people experience lives, you know. Like everything fluctuates, everything like has like good moments and bad moments, like even just the way that we move through the seasons is just part of it. And I feel like this idea that love is something you can have at first sight and just like be in this abstract concept of love, I feel like it creates this weird standard. And then like when you have those inevitable moments where you just don't feel that same way that you did initially, which is again like inevitable, that sort of thing happens, like it makes it feel like the initial feeling was a lie. And it wasn't a lie. It was just one phase of a relationship that you move through. You know, I don't know if I'm making any sense.
No, you're totally making sense. I would say I basically agree with everything that you're saying. I especially like what you said about love being about actions, more so necessarily than feelings. Because I agree. Like, and I also think there are different kinds of love. So like the question is inherently sort of flawed, and then it's like, you know, like you said, you can be in lust with somebody at first sight, and I feel like you can have a crush on somebody almost at first sight. And like, is that love? I don't know. You could argue that like those feelings can lead to love, and like maybe you love that person the whole time, and that love evolved and changed. But yeah, I generally agree that like those feelings that you have initially don't necessarily paint the whole picture of your feeling for a person overall, or how, or the feelings that you have for somebody upon first seeing them don't necessarily reflect the feelings that you're going to have for that person 3 months into a relationship, or 6 months into a relationship, or whether or not you're going to have a relationship with that person at all. That all being said, I do think that there is a thing that can happen when you see a person that you like. I mean, beyond lust, because there is something to be said when you just see like a conventionally attractive, like really sexy person, where you're like, wow, that person is just a very attractive person who I want to have sex with. But I think beyond that, there's also like a feeling that you can have upon immediately seeing somebody that is equally superficial, but, or maybe not equally superficial, but is superficial in a way that is removed from sexual attraction, where like, and this is something that I think is highlighted by things like dating apps, where you're essentially judging people based off of their, you know, photos and like a little bio or whatever, where you can see somebody and immediately feel attracted or have like attracted to their vibe in a way that is not necessarily sexual. And speaking sort of like to what you were saying about how you are attracted to sort of non-conventional looking people and people who look unique, I think, and maybe it's wrong to like profile people this way or judge people based on aesthetics, but I think there is something that you can garner by the way that somebody chooses to present themselves in a dating app or in real life that can make you feel connected to them on a way that is more profound than just like immediate sexual attraction, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I met a girl at or a person, I don't know what their identity is, but at a Save the USPS rally a few weeks ago, and like I met them and like they were like handing out like they walked up to me and they were like, do you have like water? We have like cold waters and we want to make sure everyone's hydrated. We also have sunscreen. And I was like, oh my god, I would love it. I don't know why that person's just like coming up, this very cute person just coming up and being like, do you have everything you need? Here are the resources we have. I was just like, oh god. Anyways, but you mentioned something about being like super, like whether it's wrong to be superficially attracted to people, and like for me, like I don't necessarily feel like it's wrong to be superficially attracted to people, but like I've also come from a perspective where like I'm attracted to like anything, like as long as it's like someone I can generally vibe with. Like I remember at one point in college I had a really strong crush on 3 different people. One was a really tall, pale guy with dark curly hair and a very broody sort of like distant attitude.
Chris?
The second person was a short, no, I mean yeah, but
because you just described Chris.
This isn't Chris, but it was someone who's angrier than Chris, and like
Whoa.
gives off an angrier vibe than Chris. I know, right? The second person I had a crush on at the time was a short, like I think maybe even shorter than me, black guy who was sort of stocky with dreadlocks. And the third person was a gender neutral Asian person with like, who was like about my height and was like had a very chipper, like cheerful attitude. They just like looked physically completely different, and they all had fairly different personalities as well. But I was like so into each of them at the same time, and then I was just like, I don't know what my fucking type is. I don't know if I have a type. But I also had like a very physical, like I thought all of them were physically beautiful, and I just like I feel like physical attraction can have a really strong role for me, but like I don't know like what it is about a person physically that makes me attracted to them. Like I'm very attracted to you physically. I don't know exactly why. I just look at you and I'm like, oh my god, look at that cute little hair. I just want to like run my hands in
Well, it's not little
know.
hair anymore. Now it's big poofy hair.
Not anymore. Hi tonsils. Yeah. Do you want to know a funny story about like,
Sure.
so like the day that I was on the Everything Now show briefly as a guest, I was considering asking you out on a date then, and I like that's part of why I wanted to be on the show. And I like got there and I like walked in and you were dressed like a pickle and I was like, on a date.
Oh, I forgot that was the episode. That pickle, yeah, we haven't brought back Roger Gherkin in a while. Oh, that's actually really funny. I should. Well, the problem with Roger Gherkin is that with the green screen, it really makes it difficult to use him. I think that pickle costume is around here somewhere. I want to touch on a couple of comments that I saw in the chat. Some things that I saw were interesting. Wavy Lines brought up. I think that kind of superficial connection to people based on sight might have something to do with seeing the best of things in yourself and them, and that's really interesting and insightful. Not something that I had considered, but probably true, at least to some extent. Seeing, just yourself or seeing compatibility in some way. And then Taxman, I wanted to read your comment as well. My wife and I were friends before dating, but there was one moment a few months after meeting where we just looked at each other and knew. And that is really interesting to me. I would love to know more about that moment, but I don't know if there's a way to articulate it. I think what you're describing is sort of that feeling that I was trying to describe. And I don't know if there's words for it, but just kind of like a vibe. Don't know what that is, but yeah, that's super cute, really beautiful. I'm vicariously really just feeling the love. And also I'm slightly jealous that you were able to find love in that way, Taxman, but congratulations. And
Next
Sunbro
question?
says, dressed himself as a pickle, funniest shit I've ever seen. Sunbro, were you in the chat for the Roger Gherkin episodes? I feel like that was so long ago. I don't remember that your name being around by then. If that's the case, you are more OG than I thought. But yeah, the pickle costume was great. And we've got a sweet little kitty. Oh!
He likes to randomly bite me when I'm petting him.
Aww.
But then he'll like lick me.
What a sweetie.
So what's the next question?
The next question is, thank you for keeping us on track, Aiden, because I could watch this cat for all of time. But we do have to move on because we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questions remaining. Oh wait, no, just kidding. We have 5 questions remaining because we're on 14 now. And this is one that you ask me, I think, and then I will ask you.
Mm-hmm. So, waiting for it to appear on screen. Okay, if you could change one physical thing and one personality trait about yourself, what would they be?
Oops, I gotta get rid of the question. Hello, kitty. Hi, kitty. That was pre-Sunbro. I was semi-quoting a meme. Oh, I see. Okay, Sunbro, gotcha. Well, check out the VODs. They're out there. One physical thing I would change. Maybe I would like to have a very defined jawline. I think that would be cool. Not even like, I don't know, I just like, that's something that I notice in other people is having a defined jawline. I feel like I have a pretty weak jawline. And I think they're just like, I don't know, it'd be like, I don't want like one of those like Minecraft heads where you just have like a square, like your head is just like perfectly a box. But I think it would be cool to have like, just like a nice angular, like chiseled jawline. I think that would go a long way for me. For my confidence, that's something I'm self-conscious about. Is my slightly weak when I can get a multi-chin thing kind of going. So that's a physical trait. I'm not super bothered by it though. I feel pretty. Exactly. I like my nose. I feel pretty good about. I have a strong chin, says Wavy Lies. Thank you. Yes, I feel good about my chin. I feel like my chin kind of makes up for my lack of jaw. I've got the cleft chin a little bit, which I feel good about. Overall, I feel pretty decent about the cards I've been dealt in the physical department. Could be better, but hard to complain. As for a non-physical trait. I think having Being able to speak without, and I just did it there, being able to speak without ums, which is something that I pretty easily, not easily, but something that I could fix with enough focus and dedication. But being able to like articulate myself more clearly and like without saying like or without saying being able to just like say exactly being able to articulate things in the way that I have them in my brain, like being able to get stuff from in here to out there without the ums and uhs and likes and stuff like that. If I could do that, that would be tight.
I just want to say real quick that I don't think that, I mean, obviously, like, you're entitled to your own perception, your own self-perception, and if you want to change that, that's okay. I'm a very big advocate of people using what are called filler words, like or or. Every single language has their own filler words. I just used one right now. And the reason that they're useful is because if there's more than like half a second between what the first thing you say and like the continuation of your sentence, the person you're talking to thinks it's their turn to speak and will start speaking. So filler words like or prevent that from happening, so that you can continue your thought without
Thank you very much.
Without necessarily like losing your turn in conversation. People who use those filler words are giving themselves more time to think about what they want to say to form those sentences at all, while still like having that rolling conversation. And people who use filler words tend to have more larger vocabularies and form more complex sentences.
That is
I hope
interesting.
that makes you feel better.
I hadn't thought about that, and that does slightly make me feel better. Thank you. Also, thank you to Disappointing Fries for the follow. The shot of the cat is so good. What you're saying about filler words does make a lot of sense to me, and it does help me feel a little bit better. I think what you're saying though about like giving you more time to process your thought and express it is interesting, and I guess I just feel like I wish that I could maybe be more intentional with the way that I speak, so that I'm thinking about what I'm saying before I say it a little bit more, rather than what I tend to do, which is start a sentence not 100% knowing where it's gonna go or how it's just having a general vibe of like what I'm trying to say. And hoping it finds its way. I forget. I think there's like an Office quote of Michael Scott saying something similar, where he says something to the effect of like, "I'll just start saying something and hope that it finds its way." But I do think I see people like Noam Chomsky or Russell Brand or like these people who are simultaneously both so articulate and have such great vocabularies.
But they are old guys. They're old guys. They know what they want to say because they've gone through the process of like saying it with filler words like throughout their whole lives.
That's true.
When they respond to interview questions, they've been asked those questions a bajillion times. You know.
That's a good point. Yeah, I think especially
have compassion for yourself. Have compassion for yourself.
That's very sweet, and that is an interesting point. I do wonder if I will still use filler words to the extent that I do now when I'm, I don't know, 50 or 60. I look at my dad. My dad uses filler words very similarly to me. We speak in a very, I think I probably like subconsciously or consciously try to imitate him in a lot of ways, because I do look up to him in a lot of ways. And so I think part of the way that I speak is based on the way that he speaks. And he uses a lot of filler words. And he's 76. So I don't know if I'll ever grow out of it, but what you said about filler words does make me feel a little bit better about it, so thank you. And now I will bounce a question over to you. What is one physical trait and one non-physical trait that you would change in yourself? And you don't have to say one, by the way. I know that it's posed in a way where but...
I have so many.
Okay,
so
good.
Many.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I actually feel the same way. I get really self-conscious about my chin chub. So that's like a big thing. Also, I want to have a more well-defined unibrow. I used to pluck the space between my eyebrows very regularly, and then I stopped, and I was like, because I always thought that because I always grew hair there, that if I stopped plucking it, I would grow a unibrow. And then one day I was like, what if I had a unibrow? That would be like a cool thing.
Yeah, it looks like Frida Kahlo.
No, I would look like. Well, I would. Okay, with the flower crown, I get that people would assume that I'm trying to do that, but I think I would look like me. I think more people should like have unibrows, and they should be a more accepted feature of society.
Fair point.
Also, like an interesting thing, like when before I stopped shaving my underarms, for instance, I like thought that underarm hair, even on men, was like really unattractive, and then I stopped shaving that, and I ended up like getting. I'm like 100% okay with underarm hair now, like on myself or others, like the familiarity made my perception shift. And like sort of same thing with unibrows, like now that I have like a little bit of a unibrow, but it's just not really well defined, and I wish it was like darker, and like it's getting better very, very slowly over time, but it's been like a year almost of like not plucking it, and it's still like well Squishy Tay made an emote of me, of my like little red flag emote. Let me see if I can get that in chat a bit. Hi, red flag, red flag, red flag. This is a Squishy Tay designed emote, and I she sent it to me, and I like had to send it back, and I was like, can you make my unibrow a little more well defined with the emote? You can't really even see it at that small size. But anyway, so I would like a strong unibrow. And now when I see other people with unibrows, I'm like, ooh, yeah, looking good. I'm completely makeup free, and I have not worn makeup in years. And that used to be something that I was like experimenting with, and I'm not like anti makeup for other people. I just really don't like using it for myself. Partially for a similar reason, like that you don't straighten your hair every morning because it's like a lot of time that like you just don't like, but also because like now I just like love the idea of just having my face be my face. I don't know.
Totally, yeah. No, I get that. It's like not wearing a mask.
Yeah, and I don't like have anything against people who do wear makeup, but it's also just like if I'm tired and like fed up with the world's shit, I want the world to fucking know, you know? Like I don't fucking like hide my like circles. If I have a bunch of acne, it's because I'm not sleeping lately and my face breaks out when I don't sleep. And so if I have like big ass zits all over my face, like you better fucking know, and you better fucking deal with it. Anyways, so those are my physical things.
Okay, those are good.
Okay, so the personality thing is sort of like a holdover from when I was like more intensely depressed. Is like I tend to take a lot of naps, and I tend to like take breaks and like lie down and get tired. Like I don't have a lot of endurance psychologically, because like I was for like most of my life I would get exhausted from like everything just psychologically, and I would just like go and take depression naps. And even though I don't consider myself depressed anymore, I consider myself someone who's in remission or recovered from depression. It's like a habit and like a level of endurance that I still haven't built yet. So I'm working on that.
I feel that, yeah. I took potentially a depression nap, but maybe it was just a normal nap today. So the endurance thing is something I totally feel. I've always been a person who like cannot stay up late. I don't know if you relate to that at all, but like I've never been like a person who can be up until like 3 a.m. I mean, like if there's like a big party or something going on, especially during college when that became like sort of a prerequisite for having a social life, is like being up late. I like kind of adapted, but I'm naturally like a person who goes to bed at 10 o'clock and like also sleeps in pretty late. So I just like sleeping.
Wavy lines, like, okay, doing a 5-day marathon stream and taking breaks to rest so that you can do it competently without destroying your body is not the same thing as sleeping 14 hours a day because you're depressed. Come on.
Pretty true,
anyway,
pretty true. I'm gonna move on to our next question here. And it is, I want to say this one, which is, what is some advice that you would give to a 15-year-old you?
Did we miss the second chemistry check?
Oh shit, we did. You're right. I fully forgot about it. All right, we're gonna do like a double chemistry check at the end. We'll wrap both of those chemistry checks. Thank you for knowing the format of this show better than I do, apparently. Yeah, we definitely did miss the second chemistry check, but we're gonna just power through it. We'll go on to this question, which is, what is some advice that you'd give to your 15-year-old self?
Get tested for depression and don't wait until you're about to break down in college and like have a psychiatrists like force you to take the depression inventory before you like get any sort of treatment. And also like when you go to a therapist, you don't have to perform for a therapist, you know? Like, you don't have to... Like, I wouldn't, like, perform sadness. I would, like, actively, like... I was, like, a fucking pro at diverting the conversation away from anything that had to do with me. And I feel bad because my mom spent, like, a bunch of money, or, like, I guess the insurance spent a bunch of money on therapy sessions for me after their breakup. And it was just, like, all it did was make me very, very good at directing the conversation in anything besides my own psychology. And I feel like if I could just say, like, if when you go to a therapist, like, you don't have to awkwardly try and keep a conversation going. Like, if you don't want to talk about yourself, like, just sit there in silence until, like, something speaks to you. Don't, like, put on this performance and, like, try and convince the therapist that you're psychologically okay. Or convince yourself that you're psychologically okay. It's fine to just, like, I don't know.
I feel that. No, I had a similar feeling when I had a brief stint in therapy when I was in high school as well, and acted pretty similarly. I think that's kind of natural, but solid advice. Yeah, I agree, Wavy Lines. Yeah, I think that would be a huge. I mean, I would probably give myself similar advice. I would say, in addition to those things, I would advise myself. Let's see, if I was 15. I was still doing high school sports for some reason, and for no reason, basically, just other than like it was a thing that was sort of like expected of boys in my age group and the place where I grew up. And I would say, like, abandon sports. These will not be part of your life after high school at all. You will get injured multiple times. I ended up getting back-to-back concussions, high school wrestling, which I think fucked up my head and my ability to think for a little while. So I would definitely not do those. I would not wrestle. I would not play lacrosse. I would instead join the theater group, which I ended up doing later in high school. Yeah, yikes, definitely. So from Wavy Lines, yeah, it was bad news. I did get dropped on my head a couple of times in high school. Not good. So I'd probably avoid those things. Even though wrestling was interesting, and I think I did learn a lot from doing high school wrestling, not necessarily the stuff you might expect from wrestling, but just like the idea of being... it's an individual sport, which is interesting. Like it's one versus one, but it's a team sport, and that you're on a wrestling team. So there's like an interesting dynamic with that. We don't have to get too much into my high school wrestling experience, but
I actually kind of would like to get a little more into your high school wrestling.
Okay, well,
okay. We don't have to if you're really...
It was no. I mean, we could talk about it a little bit. It was short-lived. I'll just say that I wrestled for like a semester and a half, and then I exited due to multiple sustained injuries. But it was the best shape I've ever been in my life. I'll also say that it was. I went to a school, a Chicago public high school that was like. Well known for the wrestling team. They had like won state a few times, and I was not on the varsity team that was going to state. I was on a JV shitty team for the like scrawny little boys like me. But they worked just as hard as they did the varsity team, and I was in extremely good shape. The best I probably will ever be in my life. Hopefully.
Have you ever like considered like trying out like either as an audience member or like as a participant like the indie professional wrestling scene, like with the big theatrics? Like I've started to learn more about that culture. I haven't actually like watched a match or anything, but it seems really fascinating.
It's
and
super
also,
fascinating.
If you were going to hypothetically like be like an indie like professional wrestler, like what like would your wrestling persona be?
Both really good questions. You should talk to Rocky about this because he is of the Everything Now show crew. He is the one who is most intimately familiar with professional wrestling, and I think he has brought in some components of professional wrestling into the creative vibe of Everything Now. So I'd be interested to hear his answers to these questions. I have not really considered doing professional wrestling in any serious way. If I were to have a professional wrestling gimmick, I would probably be a villain. I'd like to be a heel. I think it's fun to be a heel. I like to be a heel on Everything Now show, although I'm not. I don't know. My characters are not usually explicitly evil, but tend to be sort of like morally ambiguous. But I think being a villain is like one of the really fun parts of professional wrestling that I really like, is that there are these guys who are specifically designed to just like piss off the audience. And I also think like a lot of my opinions would probably piss off, you know, like just as like a leftist kind of like liberal cuck guy, you know, like I feel like that would probably upset a lot of the general fandom of, not to say that everybody who watches professional, obviously Rocky is also a left-leaning person who is a fan of professional wrestling.
And
so
some
those
of the
people are
indie
out there.
scenes, like some of the indie scenes are like really like there's like wrestling that like certain like wrestling groups that are like super like LGBT, for instance, or like super leftist, like when you get onto like the indie circuit.
Oh, that's
It's,
really
like,
cool.
fascinating.
I don't know a ton about it.
Yeah.
I guess I would have to do a lot more research into it, but it is fascinating, and I love the theatrical. You know, it's the same reason that I like, and I don't know much about, but I definitely respect and like the drag scene, where it's just like it is just like this very cool theatrical, creative, expressive, like storytelling medium that like is kind of not fully in the mainstream, so it's allowed to like kind of operate in a way that isn't necessarily policed by like mainstream standards of like what is cool, which lets it like, you know, allows it to do really interesting stuff. I don't know how people would feel about the comparison of drag to professional wrestling, but to me they seem like super similar, like almost the same. Jake could be the lawman luchador. That's interesting. A lawyer who is also a Mexican wrestler and wears a mask. That could be really cool. We do have to move on, but that was a fun one. Now we are on. We're coming into the last few questions here. Shockingly, the show has still managed to almost be 3 hours long, despite half the questions. This is.
I just like talking to you guys.
Wait, did we skip one? Yes, we did. We're on this one, 16. Spoiler alert for 17. But this is the third question submitted by user Squishy Tay. Once again, if you'd like to submit questions, and please do, because I'm quickly running out of them. Submit questions for the show to the Discord, link down below. This question submitted by user Squishy Tay. I think you will ask this to me first, and then I will ask it to you, Aiden. Did I make it go away before you could read it? Sorry, here you go.
Oh, so no, it's all good. Oh, so when do you feel the happiest?
Thank you. Oops. Oh my god, what's happening? I'm pressing the wrong buttons. Oh god. There we go, I fixed it. When do I feel the happiest? We're back to question 4. Yeah, we're gonna start the whole show over from question 4. I feel the happiest when I am doing something collaborative with people that I like and respect. I think it's like a two-parter. It's like definitely as somebody who is a self-described introvert and somebody who really enjoys their alone time, like needs to have time where I think because I was raised in a family where all my adult siblings were out of the house and I just spent a lot of time alone. I got really good at being alone, and I enjoy I need to be alone sometimes. But that being said,
same.
that times that I'm the happiest are when I am not alone, which I think is probably a common thing. And more specifically, it's in a time when I mean, Everything Now shows a perfect example. When I'm collaborating on something creative, but not necessarily even creative, you know, it can just be like a project or something. When I'm working with people that I think are interesting, and especially funny. I mean, like, I think specifically to times like in college and everything, or when we were doing Improv Inc. on the improv team, just like sitting in my garage after an Improv Inc. show with just like all the people who I think are funnier than me, and like just being around people who I think are not better is too broad of a term, but like, you know, I like to surround myself with people who have characteristics that I admire and want to see in myself, like people who are funnier than me, people who are smarter than me, people who are whatever more than me. And if I could be in a room with all those people and just like hanging out and collaborating in some way, that makes me so happy.
Mm-hmm. That's
what about you?
Oh my god, I'm so like emotional like on your behalf. Like you have the whole Everything Now show and like you doing all of this cool collaborative stuff.
Yeah, it has been a lifesaver during the quarantine, like to have the show. And I mean, like I think it's been a struggle for sure with like social distancing, and obviously, especially with Rocky having to call in, it's really tough not having him around. But I mean, it has been like if I didn't have the show and I was just like alone in an apartment all the time, I would be losing my mind. So it has been super fulfilling and rewarding to have that. And I'm just so grateful and blessed. What about you, Aidan? What is the moment when you find yourself to be the happiest?
I would say moments when I'm in nature, especially when it's like nature without pressure. Like part of what stressed me out about living in California was how specifically the particular part of California that like Orange County is so hyper developed. And now like living in Lansing again, like being able to like right next to my apartment or my rental is like a vacant lot that is completely overrun with vines and trees, and like I like to go sit on my porch and just like there's like see squirrels playing and fighting with each other, and just like seeing like just like being like surrounded with nature without like needing to like drive to like an outdoor like park or whatever, like drive an hour to get to some form of natural world, and I can only stay for a few hours and I've got to like sit and experience it. Just like being like moments when I'm like walking just like to the bus stop and I just like pass like this like field of wildflowers. I just like it just fills me with something that I really miss living in California for sure. At least the Central Valley has some nature left for now.
For sure.
Yeah, so I'm really like glad I'm back in Michigan because being isolated from that was really like stressful.
I 100% relate to that. I mean, speaking specifically to the Midwest, I grew up in a suburb outside of Chicago, and like I totally feel that. I still feel that like just seasons. Like I mean, it's sort of more broad than nature, but just like the idea of time passing and like walking down a street that has like that smell that you get when you like are walking through a rural area after like the leaves are falling, or like after a big like when a thunderstorm is about to happen, like right before a big thunderstorm happens. These are like things that are specific to regions of the country that have seasons, and it's something that I really definitely do miss living in California. Like those feelings are some of the best.
We've had a lot of big thunderstorms here, Chicago recently had a tornado, like, in Chicago, so I don't know.
Yeah, I heard about that. That's wild. Yeah, it is. Chicago weather is really crazy, but I miss it. I think so many of my best memories as a child growing up were like hunkering down in the basement, like during a big thunderstorm with a friend, and like making a fort and like turning on the Weather Channel and just like, and it's like just enough scariness to be like kind of fun and exciting, but not like ever so terrifying that you really think you're gonna die like in a hurricane or something.
Or in like a massive wildfire that's like consuming like much of the state.
Yeah, exactly. And one that just like keeps going day after day, where it's like with a thunderstorm, it's like this will be like kind of cool and scary for like 3 or 4 hours and then it'll be over. Whereas with the fires, it's like this is maybe forever now. I don't know. It seems like it. Anyway,
well, if you want to come back to the Midwest.
I do want to come back to the Midwest, and I don't know. I'm so that's a whole nother show. Is my endless struggle to decide whether or not I should stay in LA or come back to the Midwest, but. It's going to have to be for another time because we do have to move on to our penultimate question of the evening, which I spoiled last time accidentally. But here's one. What is a memorable piece of advice that you have been given? And I'm asking that to you first, Aidan. What is a memorable piece of advice that you have been given? And it doesn't necessarily have to be good advice. It's just memorable advice, but...
Yeah, I think that the two things I think of are both like creative advice. The first is that if you want to be good at making things, like the two things that you need are, the first is persistence, like the ability to like actually apply yourself to like developing the skills of a craft, and the second is taste, like having like good taste in what makes like like banjo playing good, or what makes an embroidery like good quality, because you can like play banjo like every single day, but if you can't like recognize the fact that you aren't playing it well, like it's gonna be hard to improve. And so if you start doing something, like if you start learning a new art or a new skill and you sound like crap, but you recognize that you sound like crap, you have the opportunity to improve. And if you do something and it like, if you like make an art and you're like, this is fucking perfect, flawless, I'm amazing, like if it doesn't like make you itch, if you don't see the flaws in it, and if that doesn't bother you, you're not going to improve even if you keep doing it. And so like embracing that feeling of like, oh, I wish I could be better, is the best and only way to really like actually get better. And so like, yeah, learning to like work with that feeling of anxiety and like that feeling that you're not good enough, instead of shutting it down or like stopping what you're doing because the feeling itself is too hard, is like an important thing to learn. And I also need to play banjo because I haven't practiced in weeks because I keep forgetting. And then the other piece of advice, that's creative advice that I think is really good and memorable and stuck with me, is to just get a fucking hobby. Because
Totally.
like, because a lot of like comedians will like as you and Jake, or you and Chris talked about on your improv show, can only like comedy isn't a topic. Like you have to have hobbies, you have to have interests, whether it's like high school wrestling or like whatever. In order, like you have to have things you want to comment on as an artist. You have to have things or interests. And I remember I once like walked into a class with a newspaper that I was reading. Like I picked up like one of the New York Times that they had around, and I was just reading the New York Times. And my like professor, like before class started, was like, "That's the best thing you can do to improve your writing. Not anything that happens in the class. Like just reading that newspaper." And like seeing those stories as external stories is going to do you a lot better. So
That's totally true.
and I don't do anything creative, but like whatever.
No, I 100% agree. It's funny that you bring up improv, because that piece of advice that you just said is something that it reminds me of an anecdote that I heard. Ben Schwartz, I'm sure you know Ben Schwartz, the voice of Sonic, among other things.
Parks and Rec?
Yes.
No.
Yeah, he's John Ralphio. He's also he's the voice of Sonic. He has a Netflix special with Thomas Middleditch.
Yes.
You probably know him from something. But he is an improviser, trained at UCB, and I always think about a story that he tells about when he was learning improv. He was doing it obsessively every night, doing shows, doing practices all the time, improv for months on end, and he found himself getting into a rut, and like he got advice from one of his improv teachers, which is basically exactly what you just said, which is that eventually, if all you're doing is improv all the time, the only thing that you're going to have to reference when you're doing improv is other improv scenes. And so the best way to sort of break that, and I think it's totally relevant for all types of creative works, improv especially, because you're drawing so much on experience and you need it immediately. But writing, music, acting, whatever. The best way to sort of break that creative block is to, like you said, go out and experience life. And there's only so much thinking about what's going on or what might happen that you can do. The best way is to go out and see it for yourself. So 100%, totally agree with that advice.
Before we go to the last question, like the best short stories that I've written have mostly just been like word for word transcriptions of interactions I've had with strangers on bus stops, or whatever, like just like having this like moment, and it just like going and like transcribing it word for word often turns into like my best creative work.
There you go. Well, they say right when
like
you know.
It's cheap, but I get praise for it, so it boosts my ego. Oh my god, Thompson's is so cute. Sorry, next one. Last question.
Last question. Oh, I do want to say one other piece of advice. I'll just share real quick. Something that my therapist, advice that my therapist gave to me that I love to tell to people. I gave this advice to somebody recently in my life, actually, which is that when you are, it's especially relevant like after a breakup or a time when you are like in an intense feeling of wanting to do self-improvement for some reason, it's easier to start new healthy habits than it is to break old bad habits. So like I think a lot of people after they get like out of a long relationship or like something traumatic happens immediately want to be like, I'm gonna stop smoking, I'm gonna stop doing drugs or drinking or whatever, staying up way too late. Like these things that are considered bad habits, the way he described it is it's easier to fill a hole with something new than to fill a hole with another hole. So it's easier, so rather than removing bad things from your life, keep doing the bad things. I mean, obviously, it's good to not smoke,
but eventually, we all have limited hours in the day, so like the more good things, I drink Coca-Cola, and I've never gone more than 3 weeks at a time without drinking Coca-Cola. That was like the best streak I had. I just have a bit of an addiction. But like, if I instead think of I'm going to drink like a black coffee, less sugar, and just make a habit of doing that in the mornings instead of automatically reaching for a can of Coke, or like even better yet, maybe like I have some hibiscus raspberry tea.
Totally.
Maybe I can make a habit out of drinking that. I haven't had it in months. But
well, what my therapist would say is he'd be like, keep drinking Coke. That's totally fine. Don't remove that. If that's what makes you happy and is fulfilling for you and is not stressful for you, like obviously, there are more healthy things to drink than Coke, but rather than immediately being like, I need to cut out Coke from my life and replace it with something better, keep drinking Coke, but also add like, I'm gonna take a 15-minute walk every day, or I'll eat this one healthy meal a day, or I will balance it out with some other healthy habit. It's much easier to add another thing to balance out the bad things than to try to keep removing bad stuff, was his point. And it's something that I think about a lot.
Empty life with no joy.
Exactly. So that's something that was really profound that he said to me that has changed my life for the better, I feel like. So now we are going to move on to the last question of the evening. Do you believe in God or anything supernatural? And we briefly touched on this. I'm going to let you answer this one first. Or actually, I'm going to answer this one first so that we can. So that you're right, and I feel like we should also end on the guest. That seems appropriate. So I'll quickly answer this one, as quickly as one could answer a question this profound. I don't believe in a traditional God. I think that is pretty common at this point now that I would say a lot of people probably no longer believe in the idea of like guy in the clouds, like physical human-looking person or human-looking like guy who is doing stuff. What you were saying earlier about a general connectedness that all living things have, or maybe all people have, I don't know, I won't put words in your mouth, but I feel like there is definitely a general connectedness that all living things have, some sort of consciousness that connects everybody. To what extent that affects us in our day-to-day lives, I don't know. I think I have a general sort of agnostic approach, which is that I don't feel confident about any one particular thing at all. I definitely don't feel comfortable saying there's no God and there's no supernatural powers or supernatural things in the universe that we don't understand. That being said, I also don't feel 100% saying that there are those things. I've never had an experience. I generally consider myself a skeptic. I feel when people say that they have experiences with ghosts or talking to family members on the other side or psychics or anything commodified, I immediately get extremely suspicious of. Like people who will say, pay me money to do XYZ supernatural thing make me extremely suspicious, and I definitely tend to err on the side of skepticism with those things.
You will never escape.
Legacy Squid coming in with the 10 months. Good to see you, Legacy Squid. I saw you also, I think, last night in the gaming stream I did with the 2 puppets. It's good to see you. Only God I believe in is you, Jake, and Aiden is the Virgin Mary, and the crosswords is Jesus. And that is beautiful. Thank you so much for that, Legacy Squid. But yeah, I think that's sort of where I fall on it, is like, personally, I haven't had too many experiences that have made me feel confident in some sort of supernatural power or God, but I certainly have not closed myself off to it. I am open to those things, and I have respect for people who do feel strongly about those things. My one like caveat is things like organized religion and commodified supernaturalism, which is like, I feel like sort of a grift, and I have a problem with that kind of thing. But if you have a private belief or something like that, and you know, you're not trying to commodify it in some way, I respect that, and I am open to hearing about it, and like probably assume that there is some real component to it. But that's kind of where I fall on the spectrum of spirituality.
Yeah,
How about you?
I think I feel very similarly. I feel like I don't really need anymore I used to be very, very, very into the supernatural, and the TV show Supernatural. Speaking of media that has impacted us. But like, eventually I just, like, the natural world is so mysterious and unknowable in so many ways. Like, no matter how deep you get, like, there's still so much that we don't know about the world, like, about how atoms move and how, like, what matter really is and what is antimatter, and like the possibility of multiverses and like what's beyond our universe. Like, there's so much that is just unknowable. Like, what is fucking consciousness? It's just we ultimately, like, even science comes down to faith. This faith that there is a answer out there, faith that that answer is worth searching for, that it is knowable to humans. So even, like, in a lot of ways, like, our understanding of the natural world comes down to faith. And that's, like, something that, like, recognizing that has made science feel mystical in a way, and, like, really, like, it scratched that itch in my brain that, like, craved something beyond, like, my understanding of the world. I feel like a lot of people feel that craving, feel like just that psychologically, and express it in different ways. But yeah, I mean, like, and they say, like, sufficiently advanced science is unknowable from magic, but even, like, just the way that the universe operates, like how people, like, and animals and plants even reproduce, or the way that fungi and trees interact deep below the earth to, like, communicate. Like, it's all so, like, mystical and magical, that I just don't feel like I need to have, like, a god to pray to, you know? Anyways, so that was a fun note to end on.
Yeah, I think I agree with what you're saying. I think we have some other comments also here in the chat that I want to talk about. Speaking of commodified religion, Bethesda's selling amulets of Mara for $100 that you can buy on Etsy for $15. So Matt Man is letting us know on a good deal. Check it out if you're interested in an amulet of Mara. You can get it on the low from Etsy. Sunbro says consciousness is a very red chemical reaction. And I could see that being the case. Yeah, I think I have listened to a lot of lectures and stuff recently about the limits of understanding and, like, what, you know, people, you know, some people saying that, like, we could basically understand, if we can understand every component of the physical world, like, you know, there's no room, God exists in the cracks, is what they say, or something to that effect, where it's like God exists in these, like, the spaces between what we understand, and those spaces are shrinking and shrinking as we learn more about God exists in the gaps. Yes, thank you, Wavy Lines.
My fucked up brain just interpreted that, and it's just like, it doesn't even make sense, but I keep, like, interpreting that in, like, a sexual way.
He does. He exists in all types of cracks.
Okay.
But yes, I mean,
Did you post links to those, like, lectures in the Discord? Because I would be
yes, definitely. I can find some of those stuff. Those are, like, everything, my usual setup for falling asleep. Although recently I have not needed stuff to listen to fall asleep, which is interesting, and I don't know why. But almost forever, potentially. But I found a lot of really great long philosophical and intellectual lectures that I bet you would dig. So I'll post those in the Discord. But I think it's time now, 3 hours after we began, to finally draw an end to this episode. And I would be remiss if we did not do one final chemistry check, especially since we did miss the one that was supposed to happen after round 2. So I will put it to you once again, chat, if you haven't done one of these yet, if you came in late, this is the chemistry check. This is where you, the audience, get to decide, how is our chemistry? My chemistry with Aidan, 5 being the strongest chemistry and 1 being the weakest chemistry. go ahead and vote in the chat where you think we finished this evening. Your votes right now really, I guess, don't necessarily mean anything. I'm still trying to figure out what exactly the use of this is, other than for my own edification and to make it interactive in some way.
It's interesting.
It is kind of interesting, right?
It's like a narrative arc to the whole thing.
Yeah, it gives. Yeah, that's true. There is a narrative arc. You get to sort of see how far we've come from the beginning. I think maybe it makes sense to do a chemistry check just at the beginning and at the end, rather than doing them after every round. But I do also like having like a little thing between the questions to sort of break it up. I don't know. This is an evolving format. It's once again gone 3 hours long, which is not my intention. I would like to eventually keep it to 2 hours.
Next week, third time's the charm, okay?
Third time's the charm. I'm gonna keep figuring it out. There's gonna be maybe some more interactive components. There may be some sort of game component that I want to add. I don't know. If you have suggestions, we'll make it snappy next week, says Tay. Okay, great. But again, as always, I'm gonna go ahead and end this now. And it looks like we did it, Aiden. We made it to majority 5s, and that is what the chemistry check is all about. Like you said, there was a narrative line. We went from, at the very beginning of this episode, from a 3 to, in the middle of the episode, we were kind of in the 3-4 range, and by the end, all 4s and 5s. I would say that's a success. So congratulations to us. We've fallen in love. Chat, I hope that you too have fallen in love with AidanWould. And if you have and you are not already, please go follow AidanWould on Twitch. Their information, their username is written on the screen right there. It's also in the title. You can check out our Discord. Aiden is so kindly linking our Discord. Wavy Lines is a moderator, and they are shouting out AidanWould. No shout-outs. I don't know what that is about.
It's fine. Y'all can find me. I know.
I think most of you are probably from Aidan's channel anyway. But if somehow you don't already follow Aidan, please go over there. Follow their channel. They do awesome crossword puzzles and political chats and all sorts of cool stuff that you cannot find on Everything Now show. So you're gonna have to head over there. And what else? If you enjoyed this show, follow us, I guess, if you haven't already. If you didn't enjoy this show, please join our Discord and tell me how to fix it. If you did enjoy this show, but you have an idea for how to make it even better, join our Discord and tell me how to fix it. Go to the suggestion box, just like after the last episode. I'll be in there taking suggestions and talking about how to make it better. I had fun. Aiden, did you have fun?
I had a lot of fun. I was very, very nervous at first, and anybody who watched my stream before this can tell you I was like pacing. I was like, I don't know. Oh my god, I'm so nervous. But I really feel like I was chilling by the end. You could tell I was fidgeting a lot, which is how you know I'm very comfortable. So I'm just sort of vibing.
I also fidgeting. I have one headphone in the entire show. Both this show and the Noah show, I have just been fiddling with the one headphone that's not in my ear, so I totally relate to that. But yes, you were an amazing second guest. Thank you so much for doing the show. I really appreciate it. This is a learning experience, very much so. Show and Tell Max, what's happening? It's an interview show, just like what the chat says. So it's an ever-evolving show. Next week will probably be slightly different from this one. In what ways remain to be seen. But thank you guys all for joining me. It's been a pleasure falling in love with all of you. And we will see you tomorrow. Or I won't, because I've got another engagement. But I hear Junks is going to be in tomorrow's episode. So if you're a fan of Junks, or just generally the Everything Now show or having fun, join us tomorrow night at 7. Oh, that's a good point. I should mention that to remind everybody who's here. Our Everything Now show now airs at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time as opposed to 8. So just like this show, it will start at a more reasonable time, 7 p.m. So join us for Junks tomorrow night, 7 p.m. We'll be there. And anything, Aiden, is there anything else you would like to plug or say before we sign off this evening?
I'm really happy at the 7 p.m. start time. First of all, I
Hell yeah.
apologize for being so rambly as a human being. And last thing, if you ever do visit Chicago and the Midwest again, you should hit me up.
Absolutely, I definitely will. If I'm ever able to travel out of the state again and I don't burn down, I'll definitely let you know when I'm back in the Midwest. Beautiful. All right.
See ya.
Well,
I should just
bye.
log off now, or okay,
yeah,
bye.
I'm gonna throw it to our bumper while I figure out somebody to raid. Does anybody have a recommendation for somebody I should raid right now?
You could rate benzomorphine or freeze. You could rate Orange You Glad.
Orange You Glad. Okay. Yeah. How do I spell their name? Can you type it in the chat really quick, and I'll be able to see it there and just type it in. Beautiful.
He's
All
a
right.
clown.
Oh my
He's a
God.
clown and he does singing streams. He will read murder mystery novels on stream. He's a delight of a human being. He'll sometimes do puzzles or coloring books on stream, and he'll do like clown makeup and like Clown 101.
Amazing. I love clowning.
He's an actual real clown.
A lot of people are afraid of clowns. I'm a big fan of clowns. I respect the art. It's really cool. So hell yeah, we're gonna send it over to Orange You Glad. I'm gonna throw to this bumper now, which means that you will no longer be able to see or hear me or Aiden. So good night, everybody. Thank you once again for joining us. I will be in the Discord immediately after this if you want to talk shit to me or give me advice about how to fix my show. And I won't see you tomorrow night because like I said, I have a prior engagement. But Junks, your favorite stone-headed demigod wish granter, will be, I hear, answering some wishes, granting some wishes over the phone tomorrow night. So you're not going to want to miss that. That's at 7 p.m.
The money.
Wavy
Yes,
Lines,
yum,
thank you
yum.
for coming in clutch with the 42 bits to end the evening. And we're going to go out on that. Good night, everybody, and I'll see you soon. Bye!